everyone. Welcome to GameFace, episode 323 on Sifted Games at sifted.net. I'm Shane Satterfield, your host for the next couple hours of intense game discussion. And alongside me to partake is Matt Kyle. What's up, Matt?
Oh, not much.
How's your week been?
Pretty good. Mostly Marvel.
Yeah. Lots of, I don't want to say great games. Lots of games to play over the last week, which is pretty rare for the first week of December.
Yeah.
Usually we get like one kind of big game in December.
Usually a straggler. It's usually from Nintendo.
Yeah. This year there are like three, though. Mm-hmm. 3 big games. And again, you'll have to wait for our discussion before you decide on whether these games are great or not. Matt, I want to showcase your shirt there. Hmm? That is pretty awesome.
Oh, yeah.
What does it say? Can you stretch it out so people can read it? This machine kills fascists.
Yeah, just in case some people forgot.
And haven't watched Andor, by the way.
Yeah, Andor makes it
very clear and plain. Where'd you get that shirt?
Online somewhere.
Yeah.
What is? I'd have to look up the.
Not official Disney merchandise.
No, this is not. This is not sanctioned.
I'm interested what would happen if you were to wear that shirt to Disneyland.
I think they'd have a problem with the kills.
Yeah.
I think it would be the violence more than the sentiment.
Yeah. I wonder how many people would come up to you and say,
when I was a kid,
shirt.
My dad got kicked out of Disneyland for wearing a shirt, a Jimmy Buffett shirt that said, "Why don't we get drunk and screw?"
Really?
And the screw was a picture of a screw. Winnie the Pooh turned him in. That's a true story.
I believe it.
I'm not making that up.
I totally believe it. It's funny, though.
He had to go back to the hotel and change.
That's great.
I don't know why he thought that was a good Disneyland shirt, but he did. That was like 1979 or something.
He really pushing the envelope for 1979.
That was my dad.
Yep. Hope you guys are doing great. Hope you guys are having a great week. Obviously, tomorrow, the Game Awards are going down, which, I mean, let's be honest, Matt, it now has become one of the biggest days in the gaming industry every year. Mm-hmm. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to get you guys hyped for the Game Awards tomorrow. One of our topics today is doing a big preview of the Game Awards, and we have a bunch of big games to talk with you guys about. Hope you're doing good. We are Sifted. We are supported 100% at patreon.com/sifted. That's SIFTD without the E. You can pledge as much or as little as you want there per month, and we appreciate all of it. You can also help us if you don't have any money with Twitch Prime. If you're watching the show on YouTube, the archive, there are instructions down below, very simple instructions I would add, to help you figure it out. You can give us a free $2.50 a month if you are an Amazon Prime subscriber, and we'd appreciate it very much. Let's see, there is some housekeeping to get to, a couple things to talk about that aren't big enough to get their own discussions on GameFace 323. First up, Matt, so much to my chagrin, it was shared this week that Xbox first-party games are going up to $70 a piece. How does that hit you?
Surprised it wasn't official already.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember or not, but I think it was right before Xbox Series launched. Phil Spencer came out and said that the audience will decide if they go up to 70. That if the audience is cool with it, then they will, and if the audience isn't cool with it, they won't. They are. What sort of messaging do you think Mr. Spencer got to suggest to him that the fans were behind $70 games? How well Call of Duty sold this year?
I mean, that could have been part of it, yeah. I'm not sure why anyone would think that the fans would be behind paying more money for anything. It's not a thing a consumer has ever asked to do, really. Because
when he said that, I'm like, well, then it's never going to happen. Because you're never going to find a place where the fans are like, cool, I want to pay an extra $10 for each
I mean, the answer is that, they've seen that the $70 games are not...
There hasn't been a revolt.
Yeah, Call of Duty sold fine. God of War sold great. It's not stopping anything.
Yeah.
I think as long as, I would hope they realize, as long as you choose the game properly... you can charge $70 and you won't really lose too many people. You're going to be able to charge $70 for Starfield. You're not going to have a problem there. You probably don't want to charge $70 for Pentiment.
Yeah,
there's differences.
Well, when he made that statement, he also mentioned that the price points for games have never been more varied than they are now, which is absolutely true. I mean, you can buy tons of games for $10, $20, $30.
Yeah, there used to be 3 price points back in the day. There were people posting old, 90s ads for cartridge games and stuff, and you had like, you know, you had the PlayStation games that were 50, and you had the main cartridge games for the N64 that were like 60, and then you had the ones that were like 80. You know, I paid $70 for Shadows of the Empire.
Yeah,
when that came out, and Killer Instinct Gold. Like
cartridges,
$70 games are not a new thing. I paid $99.99 for Phantasy Star 4 when that came out on the Genesis, and you translate that to modern money, it's like $140.
Well, it's like if you go back and look at, you know, if you just adjust prices for inflation, we were paying $100 and some for games throughout the whole NES, Super NES era. The difference is, though, that the audience was so much smaller that they needed to charge more to make money on each game that they created, because there weren't as much of us buying games. It was small, and it was hard to understand for people now, because gaming is just this thing that everybody does, whether they do it on their cell phone or they're hardcore gamers like us, like you sifters, but everybody's doing it. Back then, it was really, even among like people at our schools, not everyone in school played games. It was still this sect of people inside my middle school or inside my elementary school or whatever who were playing video games. Now everybody does it. So they had to charge more to keep making games back then. That's simply not the case now. Pachter is completely against $70 games. He feels that, like, you know, the costs of developing games from last gen to this gen maybe went up like 5%. Like, it hasn't gone up that much. And so he feels like it's a needless increase, but I think it's more of an accumulative effect.
Yeah, because they've been $60 since
for
2005.
So long. Right.
Like, there hasn't been a price increase for mainstream games for 17 years.
Yeah. It's pretty insane.
Like
that
crazy.
just simply hasn't happened in any other industry.
Yeah, it's amazing that they stayed 60 as long as they did.
Yeah.
And there was the same kind of consternation about it when it went to 60. It was like, I can't afford anything more than $50 for a game. It's like, well, you're gonna.
Yeah.
Or you're gonna wait. Like, that's it. You know, if people can charge whatever they want for luxury products, basically.
Yeah.
Like, they're not a necessity. This is not the price of milk.
It's interesting that this is happening when, you know, inflation is high. People are saying that, you know, they can't afford this or that.
I mean, I think this would happen regardless.
Yeah.
And, like, I'm not sure what prompted Microsoft to follow suit now.
Yeah.
Why? I don't, you know, like, what do they have coming down the pipe that they need to, like, get ahead of this for?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what.
Because it's a long ways away until they release a first party game again.
Like, you're really talking about Redfall.
Yeah.
You know, which is probably, I mean, I don't know. Like,
first half of next year.
First half of next year sometime.
I mean, I'm on the beta already. So it may be pretty early.
It could be March. I could see that in March, which could imply, in the best of all possible worlds, a Starfield around June.
Yeah,
but I don't know. You know, they did say first half.
They did,
but I feel like that's going to slip.
Yep. But you know, so Pachter made a good point when we were shooting the last round of episodes last week. He said people think they don't have any money, but they actually do. Like, everybody has a job. Unemployment is like record lows right now. It's not that people don't have money. It's the fear mongering that we are going to have this horrible recession. So people, instead of spending their money, are keeping their money because they're afraid that the media or whatever has made them feel that there's this recession coming and they're going to need to save for a rainy day. So I had not looked at it that way. I was like, I really thought, you know, people just were underemployed, or a lot of people didn't know. That's really not what's happening. People are hoarding their money right now because they're afraid, again, due to the media, that there's going to be a recession. Increasingly, it looks like there is not going to be a recession at all. So we'll see how that plays out. But it is odd that, you know, people are saying, I don't have money to buy this or that, but they don't have any problem spending the extra $10 for Call of Duty or for God of War. It's all priorities, I think. You know, people don't want to spend an extra $1 on an Apple, but they're okay spending $10 on an extra $10 on a video game. I don't know. It's hard to kind of understand where people are coming from in that way. But so anyway, it looks like Xbox games going to be $70, first party games, and then we also heard that the regulatory agencies in America are starting to soften their stance on the Xbox Activision Blizzard acquisition.
As expected.
So, yeah, as we had mentioned last week, like, this is insane that they're trying to block this. It looks like they're starting to figure that out.
Yeah, this is an excellent example of how a lot of the people in charge of calling the shots on a lot of the regulation stuff of newer tech don't understand what they're regulating.
Yeah.
which is another...
Because a lot of them are just old.
Right.
Like, they just don't get how things work anymore.
Yeah, I mean, and that's always been true. Like,
Yeah.
the ancient hold the levers of power. I remember back when they were doing the ESRB rating hearings and all that, and
You can just tell these people are completely
I had
detached.
no idea. And like the people who prepared their notes for them did, the judges were talking about like the resident of Evil Creek,
Right.
and things like that. And
Yeah.
you're just like, what are you
Yeah.
doing? Like, what?
Well, it's gotten worse too. Like, it wasn't such a big deal before technology started advancing so quickly. And now these older folks are left, if they don't keep up with it, in a year's time, they're left in the dust. It's not like if you check out for 5 years, you're left in the dust. Now, if you check out for like 6 months, you don't know what's going on anymore because things advance and change so quickly. So it's just become worse and worse having really old politicians
Yeah.
making rules for our
And
society.
part of it is just like, I mean, the process here is basically like, the case is presented and they're like, oh yeah, if Call of Duty is the biggest thing in that should be it. But then like you have to get across, it's like, no, it's like if you were buying a studio that had a hit movie, that's not a thing. Like
Yeah.
you're not buying the means to make shooter games,
Right.
Like they're not. Like,
it's not that they can't make them
Microsoft
anymore.
is not going to control
They just
the
suck
means of
at making
production.
them.
Yeah, just no one else has come up with anything better.
Exactly.
And as you have that explained over the course of
Yeah.
a week, because legal things take a long time in comparison to what it would take for normal people to do it. I say that from a family of lawyers.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, it's not like no one else can, because there's a real chance, I certainly know people older than us who say Call of Duty, they think of anything with a gun in a first-person perspective. They go, oh, is that a Call of Duty game?
Right.
They use Call of Duty.
Every
to mean
shooter
first-person
is
shooter.
Call of Duty.
Right. Or like how our parents would call them
Every video game, Nintendo.
Nintendo.
Yeah.
And then at a certain point, it became Xbox.
Right. Yeah.
And like all that, yeah.
It did.
In the 2000s, it was like, oh, you're going to play Xbox? I'm like, no, I'm going to play. Well, yeah, Xbox.
Yeah, it's funny.
I'm going to play my PlayStation 2. Like, no, Xbox games.
Yep. So it looks like the deal's going to go through. However, to sweeten the pot even further, I don't know if you saw this, Matt, now Microsoft has committed to releasing Call of Duty on Nintendo platforms, which it hasn't even been released on Nintendo platforms.
That just seems cruel.
I mean, it's to their developers trying to make it work on Nintendo's hardware. So it is bent over backwards like 3 times to get this deal through. It looks like it's finally going to work, and it's going to happen. Elden Ring PvP launches today. Mm-hmm. You going to jump in on that?
No, I don't really care about PvP in this games.
Even with From Software's games, you don't care?
No.
Yeah.
Like, this just build shit. It's just like, oh, who has the best build now? And now you're going to die. And, like, I don't care. I just don't care about who's better or worse at a game than I am outside of fighting games. And even then, I don't care enough to,
Obsess over it.
Yeah. It's
Yeah. But anyway, that does come out today for those who are interested. That arena that was sitting empty in the game, and everyone was like, oh, look, that's going to be the PvP arena. We were right. That's exactly what it ended up being. And then finally, Fortnite. I know we don't care about this, but it is a big deal, obviously. Fortnite Chapter 4 launched yesterday with guest appearances from the Hulk, Geralt, Doomslayer, and, drumroll, Mr. Beast.
Yeah, Mr. Beast is big.
That's a huge mistake. Like, it's like Aladdin putting, not in the script. It's like one of those things where, years from now, when Mr. Beast is, this guy, you're like, remember that guy who got a bunch of people to give him money to bribe people to watch his YouTube videos? Now he's in Fortnite forever?
Yeah.
Look, I have no problem with Mr. Beast. He seems to be a really nice guy.
People just won't use him anymore.
He does lots of things for charity. I love him, but putting him in a Fortnite is so short-sighted.
No, it's not.
I think it absolutely is.
It doesn't matter. He'll be hot for a long.
What other character in Fortnite is the equivalent to Mr. Beast being in Fortnite?
I mean, if I want to argue with that, I would say any of them.
Really?
Any of that stuff can fall out of favor and be non-interesting. I mean, you think Geralt's going to be popular in 10 years?
More popular than Mr. Beast,
Maybe.
yes, absolutely. By several magnitudes, yes.
Maybe.
Yes.
But
and in 30 years, people will know who Geralt is. They will not know who Mr. Beast is.
But it doesn't matter. People just won't use him.
Yeah, but I just don't understand why you're taking the time to put him in the game.
Because he's the biggest thing in the internet right now. He's the top
It seemed
YouTube.
like he hit that 2 years ago.
PewDiePie. He's the most subscribed YouTube person in the world.
Yeah.
I don't know a child that doesn't watch his shit. He is the most popular online content creator.
That's crazy.
Period. Nerf this week announced a gun for a Mr. Beast Nerf gun. What? I don't even know what that is. I didn't look at the pictures, but I got an email. It's like Mr. Beast Nerf collaboration coming up. Pre-orders now. I'm like, that's fucking weird. But
he was smart. Like, I don't know if you know, but he slugged it out on YouTube for years and years, just being an anonymous and also, YouTuber. And then he's just decided, he's like, why don't I just give away shit tons of money? People will watch that. Yeah, and he's like, and I bet
sponsors, as long as you work out the margins.
Yeah.
And now he goes to anyone who sponsors him gets a huge boost because he talks about them and then he becomes the thing you want because Mr. Beast is
I mean, that's how marketing and influencers work.
But he's better at it than anyone. Like it's a ridiculous.
He's better at it because people tune in because of the money
because
involved.
Of the inertia. He won't be the best at it once he's no longer the hottest thing.
Yeah,
but
I'm surprised people haven't started. There's no competitor to Mr. Beast.
He's not the first internet celebrity to be in Fortnite.
Who's the other ones?
There were others. I can't remember who, but that's not the first. Like there was nothing like I saw that news and I was like, oh, another.
Wait, is
streamer.
is Ninja even in Fortnite?
Yeah, I think he is.
I don't know if he is.
I'm pretty sure. Dave, this is not the first.
What other internet celebrities are there?
Ninja's in there.
He is in there?
Yeah, he's definitely in there. I remember that.
I don't remember that.
I remember.
What if he plays with himself while he plays?
He did. I'm sure he did for a while the contract demanded he did. There's like rock stars or rap stars.
So they're saying, Ninja was added
real celebrities.
Ago. So is there another one besides Ninja?
Maybe. I mean, but that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like Ninja's in there and no one cares.
He's still relevant though.
Yeah, but no one cares that he's in Fortnite. You don't even remember it happened.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
Well, I don't play Fortnite.
It's a moment of moment of time. And Ashes in the Hourglass makes an excellent point. I'd rather have Mr. Beast in there than the Rise of Skywalker bullshit. At least the Rise.
Really, you would?
Sure, the Rise of Skywalker stuff is garbage. Because Rise of Skywalker is a terrible fucking movie, and in order to understand the opening premise of Rise of Skywalker, you have to have heard the Emperor's monologue in Fortnite. That's the only place that story is.
That is weird.
That's the only they reference in the film the message he sends.
That was in Fortnite.
And the only place in the world that existed at the time was in Fortnite.
I'd still rather have play as a Star Wars character than Mr. Beast.
Star Wars character is one thing. that kind of content, that temporal content is stuff that, but again, that was a big thing when it happened and you don't even remember it anymore. Like it doesn't matter. Fortnite is a temporal thing that never stops.
Two older guys who don't recognize influencers now. We absolutely do. That has nothing to do with this. We know how big, he just told you how big Mr. Beast is.
Yeah,
we absolutely understand influencers. It's so funny. What the hell are you talking about, dude? Anyway, apparently I don't think there's anyone else. There's no other influencers other than Ninja because no one else has come up with anyone. So this isn't that common. Is my point. I think it's dumb, but anyway,
it doesn't matter. Like once he's no longer relevant, he simply won't be relevant. Like nobody will pick him. Doesn't matter. Like for now, it's going to be a big draw for the kids who like Mr. Beast.
The kids, for sure.
You're not planning these things as a permanent addition forever. You're just saying, like, what will get us attention and popularity in the next 6 to 10 months. And that will do it.
Yeah.
Just like Ninja did back then. But, like, if you put Ninja in now, probably nobody would care.
You think Ninja's day is done?
Not compared to Mr. Beast. His day isn't done. I mean, he's not out of business or anything, but he's not the hottest thing in the world. Mr. Beast is.
Yeah.
Get with the times, Grandpa. Come on.
I'm aware that Mr. Beast is the biggest influencer. I know that.
But, like, what's the difference? What's the difference between that
between what?
And, like, a fictional character that may not be popular in, like, how many years? There's plenty of weird things in there. I mean, other than
I think they've done pretty well selecting the characters in Fortnite. That's what I'm getting at. Like, I'll say this. They are starting to run out of characters that are worthy of being in a video game. So maybe that's where we're at.
Justin Hormus' Major Lazer and Travis Scott are in it.
Yeah, they're huge musical acts that have done events inside Fortnite.
Yeah, well, I haven't heard Major Lazer's name in a long time compared to Mr. Beast.
Well, that's because Major Lazer isn't the big deal. It's Diplo who is Major Lazer. And you may not have heard of Diplo, but Diplo is gigantic. Like
he's not Mr. Beast gigantic.
I don't know. I think if you look at who's made more money, I think probably Diplo has made more money.
I don't know.
I mean, he gets paid $250,000 for an hour DJing, like 6 nights a week. So, I don't know. Anyway, they're celebrities. Whether you like it or not, whether you know EDM and dance music or not, Diplo is a huge deal. And Major Lazer is a big deal. So, Sneaky
he's
says, I've
catching
never
up.
heard of any of these people. Sneaky, I have not figured you out, man. Like,
How long has Diplo been doing his thing?
Well, he's from Philly, actually. So he's actually been banging it out since...
How long has he been big time?
Probably since... Let me think. Probably since, 2005, maybe.
Okay. And when did Mr. Beast get popular?
Really popular? Probably 2018.
Okay, so
Sounds about right.
Diplo's worth about $50 million right now.
Is he?
Mr. Beast is worth about $25 million.
Yeah.
So that's
like I said,
pretty good for 4 years versus 20 almost.
Yeah. And he honestly,
Give Mr. Beast another 2 years and he'll beat Diplo on that.
Well, Diplo's not going to stop working.
No.
I mean, he's still going to make $250K to play an
But
hour
I'm
of
saying
music.
Mr. Beast is making money a lot faster than he is.
I
Right
believe Mr. Beast will fade away way before Diplo does.
I think Mr. Beast got 2 more years.
And Diplo will play until he's 90.
Right, but I'm saying it's kind of a false comparison in that sense because right now Mr. Beast, I think...
I didn't bring up this comparison. Someone else did, and I'm pointing out that Major Lazer is a bigger deal than you think he is.
Major Lazer is a bigger deal over the arc of time, but right now Mr. Beast is the hottest thing going, and it makes sense that they pick that as their license deal alongside.
But it also makes sense that
Doomslayer,
Diplo is in the game because he did an event for Fortnite, so they had to make his model. That's anyone who does an event for Fortnite, of course they're going to be in the game because they have to create the model for the event. So yeah.
So Mr. Beast should have done an event where he was a giant man in the sky. I don't know what Mr. Beast actually does besides give away people, and he does stupid.
He just gives away other people's
right?
money. It's basically it's like a game show where you can win $1 million.
But what is it? He's doing challenge things?
Yeah. Yeah.
So he's doing stunts or whatever?
No, he doesn't do the stunts. Everybody else is.
Okay.
They're touch the car. The last person to take their hand off the car wins $1 million. It's stuff like that. Just goofy little events. And people get into it because they're like, I could win $1 million for touching a car for a day and a half or whatever. And it's all stuff like that. Who can stay in a pool of Jell-O the longest? Who gives up first? That type of stuff. Kids love that stuff.
Oh, yeah. Clearly.
Yeah, if he's already worth $25 million, and I would argue if he were greedy, he could be worth way more than that.
Probably,
because if they're giving him $1 million just to do the thing, he could ask for whatever, and they'd probably give it to him.
He does seem to be a surprisingly decent person, considering.
Yes, like I said, I like the guy. He's a good dude.
Get out of those kinds.
Agreed.
Of people.
It's good to see someone like him versus some of the earlier influencers that became rich, like the Paul brothers. Those guys are just douchebags that somehow became influencers and got rich for being a douchebag.
116 million subs on YouTube.
It's insane.
That is impressive.
Yep.
For nothing.
Well, people are complaining about us talking about Mr. Beast, so I guess we gotta move on.
Yeah, we've lost everyone but the 12-year-old.
And there's 2 of those on our stream right now, so you're probably right. It is time to move on. And with that, let's get into GameFace 323 proper. We're gonna kick things off with, I think this is the biggest game they released this week. I'm not 100% sure. We'll see.
I don't think it is.
You don't think it is?
I think the other one is.
Okay. What I think might be the biggest game released this week, the Callisto Protocol. It is, as people have been saying for months and months now, the spiritual successor to Dead Space. It has been created by Glenn Schofield, who was the original person who created the first Dead Space. He worked on the first 2, I believe, and then the third one was handled by someone else. And he went on to work on Call of Duty.
I was going to say something, but I don't want to insult the people who worked on Dead Space 3. Dead Space 3 is a terrible game.
It was a terrible game. And he went on to work at Call of Duty, and now he has his new studio called Striking Distance, which is under the Crafton imprint, which is actually under the Embracer umbrella. It's really hard to figure out.
This is a long series, and when you first start the game, they ask you if you want to connect your account, and I'm just like, I don't even know what.
Do I have a Crafton account?
Because I played PUBG.
So.
Is that a thing that happened?
I don't think I do have one. Yeah. So anyway, he has his new studio, Striking Distance, and for their first game, at first they said that this was supposed to be set in the PUBG universe. And then a few months before it came out, Glenn Schofield said, this actually isn't in the PUBG universe, but you may find some PUBG references inside the game if you look around.
No, I won't. I promise.
I won't. So people may not realize this. People have been clamoring for Dead Space, for a new Dead Space for a really long time. And it's a really long time because Dead Space came out in 2008, Matt. It has been 14 years since the original Dead Space was released. And I guess, for better or worse, the first thing I would say before we really dive deep into this game is that, for better or worse, it's Dead Space.
Well, yeah.
But 14 years later, and so many things have changed.
It's clearly inspired by Dead Space.
Heavily inspired.
As someone who has loaded up Dead Space not super long ago, it's not Dead Space.
No? I'm glad that you've actually went back and played it recently.
Dead Space holds up. Dead Space is still fun.
What differences, the big differences, do you see between the two?
One of the big elements of Dead Space is taking those enemies apart with the various weapons and knowing that, like, how you disable them or where you cut things off or whatever. You know, how you approach the combat with them is going to determine how they can attack you. And that does not really exist in Callisto Protocol.
Well, it does. There's dismemberment.
There is, but you can't choose to do it. Like, you can't...
It does kind of just happen.
You can in Melee, it just happens. That's the other thing is, like, this game is much more Melee-focused than Dead Space ever was.
That, to me, is the biggest difference.
Yeah.
Melee is way more important in this game.
And the gun you get is... like it's a gun. It's a specific
all the guns
small
you get.
Point on the body is shot. With the mining equipment that Isaac uses in Dead Space, you have a wide line. It's like drawing almost.
Well, you can change the orientation. So it's slice vertical or slice
I want to
horizontal.
cut an arm off. Horizontal, I want to cut their legs off. Like, I want to hit them in the torso and cut them in half. Like, that's all there. In this, you can aim for a leg if you've got the time,
and it'll take their leg off, and they'll fall down.
But for the most part, the game seems to treat the gun as a supplement to the melee combat.
Yeah,
like
melee is the bigger focus.
To the point that when you finish a melee combo, a little thing pops up, and if you want, you can quick aim and pop off a shot to, like. And that's a good way to extend a combo. Like, if you're not surrounded by enemies, because the game gives you no way to handle multiple enemies, especially ones that are not in front of you. It's like, there's definitely Dead Space influence here, but I will not sit by and allow you to call this Dead Space because that insults Dead Space too hard. And we're about to learn that way all over again once that Dead Space remake comes out.
Yeah.
For a while there, I was like, I don't know if I need to worry about the Dead Space remake because Callisto Protocol is coming, and that might kind of scratch that itch well enough.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, please give me the Dead Space remake.
Well, I'll say this. Callisto Protocol does not feel like a game that came 14 years after Dead Space.
No, but
it could have been released the year after Dead Space.
Here's my hot take, though. That's just horror games.
Yeah, they haven't evolved
Horror games
much.
are archaic and boring.
You're right. They honestly have not evolved all that much over time.
And I don't know why. I don't know
either.
what the reason for that is. Capcom tries to push it a little bit with the Resident Evil stuff, like the last couple games, and I appreciate that. It doesn't really do much for me. But, like, the last real innovation of horror game presentation seems to have basically been Outlast
or RE4
or whatever invented the version of the horror subgenre where you run from everything.
Right.
Know?
Instead of fighting. Yeah. Fight or flight, and you choose the flight option.
And honestly, it is amazing how much of this, you can trace it back to Dead Space, but it's still amazing how much of this is just Resident Evil 4.
It still is. Yeah.
Like, so much of it.
Yeah, I agree. The plot, you play as Jacob Lee. He's a cargo transport pilot working on the moons.
Suspiciously like Josh Duhamel.
Yeah.
who plays him.
Working on the moons of Jupiter. One of the moons is called Callisto, and on Callisto there is a prison. All hell breaks loose. Like, you end up getting, like, boarded by these activists.
Yeah, they're like revolutionaries or something.
They're like revolutionaries.
And everybody knows who they are.
Yeah. And then you get invaded by the bad guys. Basically, you're taken hostage and you're put into a prison. Once you get into the prison, they install the thing on the back of your neck called
makes no sense.
Core device. Yeah. In the context of it, there's
is
no
this for other people
to
know that you're hurt?
That you're almost gonna die?
Yeah.
Like, you're limping and bleeding. Is it enough? I don't get it either. It's just so it's like Dead Space. And here it is. Here's the scene.
Well, in universe, it doesn't make sense because it displays. I can't see the back of my neck.
I know.
Who's that for? Like the guards?
The person playing the video game.
Is it exactly? And everyone has them. Like, even the guards have them.
Yeah.
You have to dig them out of their necks to open doors and stuff.
Yeah.
Who is it for?
I don't know. It's just so it's like Dead Space, let's be honest.
Yeah.
That's why it's there.
And I feel, I might be making this up in my head, but I feel like the early shots of this, the indicator was more down this. It was more directly Dead Space down the top of the spine kind of
I
stuff.
don't remember, honestly.
I wrote a branded thing for this for the first trailer for a major gaming website back, like 2 years ago. That first trailer where he wakes up in the prison cell, like the first thing, I think it was the Game Awards. So and like, I seem to remember the the life trackers being different, but that must be a false memory. I don't know.
Well, they put that thing in your neck, they put you in your cell, and then all hell breaks loose again. And the prison is overrun by creatures. You are released, and your whole objective is to get out, to get off of Callisto and leave. And that's pretty much the whole objective in the game. And there's not a lot of...
Everyone's surprisingly non-curious about what's happening. Like,
just honestly,
just undead monsters again. Yeah. Like, we better get out. Yeah.
Now, the people who board your ship at the beginning of the game, they do become important later on in the game. But there really aren't that many narrative threads kind of hanging around in this game, like subplots, other than just get the hell off of Callisto.
I mean, there are a bunch of, like, diary entries and audio logs to pick up, but, like... It's very hard to tell what they're going for in terms of, like...
They also don't play automatically. You have to go into the menu
and pick them, and if you back out of the menu, it stops, which I hate.
Yeah, and you can't tell, like, which one was the latest one or any of that stuff.
Like, I really wish they would just play. So because I spent a lot of time... You spend a lot of time running around empty halls. You might as well listen to something.
Yeah, I agree. Yep. Although, I will say this... Interacting with other human beings does take away from the sense of isolation. That, to me, is the other biggest change for this versus Dead Space. Is one, the character actually talks, which the protagonist in Dead Space does not talk. He's mute.
Yeah.
He talks in this. Not only that, though, he has a radio. So there's people that are constantly chattering with him and telling him, go here, go do this, go do that. That makes a big difference in the tone of the game.
And he's completely covered. And there's an element of mystery about Isaac that, like, where you're like, who is this guy?
Right.
Like, what's going on? Is the thing is even like? There's even moments where you're like, is the thing he's motivated by even real?
Right.
Like, what's And there are no questions about this guy.
Yep.
Like, he's just a trucker, basically. He's a space trucker.
WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get.
Yeah. And like. Okay, and like presumably there's some reason they pulled him in and threw him in jail without telling him what they was throwing him in jail, because he's not a prisoner. He's flying a cargo thing there for some kind of there's some shady thing going on.
Yeah, he's like running something between the moons. Of
and it's trouble because at the very beginning he's like, "This is our last run. We'll be able to like retire."
We're set
like,
for life.
No, you never say that.
You know it's gonna all go wrong. The level design in this is 100% linear. There's no reward for digging around in the corners in this game. Like,
there's like little closets and there's a couple of side things I've found, but like none of it.
Later in the game, the areas do open up a little bit more.
But the most you're really looking at like a hallway that goes down here, and you crawl under a thing, and you find a treasure chest, which you can't carry anything because your inventory is already full.
Yes.
And then you go back.
Yep. This game, one of the most challenging parts of this game, once you get over the hump, and we'll talk about the combat in a second. But to me, one of the more challenging parts of this game is the inventory management. Mm-hmm. And it's not like it's hard. It's annoying AF. It's like you don't have to... So a lot of survival horror games, you don't have enough ammo, you don't have enough this, you don't have enough that. Yeah. You have plenty of everything in this game. You just can't carry it.
They throw way more stuff than you can carry at you.
So you're constantly having to drop stuff and leave it behind.
Yeah. And even like when it's like, okay, I don't have room for this battery, but I need the battery because I've used up some of my... whatever the
telekinesis abilities,
the Dead Space device, basically.
Yeah.
And like, so I drop another thing, and I pick the battery up, and I use the battery, and I think there's supposed to be a way to just use the battery when you pick it up, but it doesn't seem to work for me.
I haven't been able to make that work at all.
Because it says the tutorial tip I think says if you need to use the battery in your inventory, it says something about you can use it directly from.
I thought it would just automatically use it if you ran out of juice. It would just automatically go to that battery and start using it.
Maybe that might be what maybe I didn't understand what it said.
It doesn't help with the inventory management.
No, but you're constantly dropping things, using something else, and then picking up the other thing, and it's like, what is this? The PlayStation 2? Like, there's no need for like that. Is not an interesting choice to make me make.
Well, sometimes you get stuff that you have to sell, and that's the only purpose it has.
There's a lot of that.
And then the credits that you get, the Callisto credits that you get from selling those objects at the Reforge, you then use to upgrade your weapons and your abilities.
And those upgrades are important.
Oh, they make a huge difference.
Yeah, they make it so you don't have to pay as much attention to the combat, which is good.
And the first thing I would say is, if you haven't played this yet, upgrade the static baton.
Yeah, the baton is key.
Because the melee never goes away in this.
The two things you should do is you focus on upgrading the baton and upgrade the gun to hold more bullets,
ammo.
Because that's fewer bullets you need to have in your inventory.
Because once you're in a conflict in this game, there's no reloading. There's no reloading. There's no using health. Because both take way too long.
Take way too long, yeah.
And you'll die. So, because it takes 2 shots, basically, and you're dead in this.
2 or 3, depending on the
many.
enemy. Like, I mean, there are one-shots for sure.
There are some, yeah.
There are some enemies that can one-shot.
But your typical rank
like
and
that
file...
guy spitting at you, you can take 3 of those spit shots before you're dead.
Yeah.
That's basically it.
Yep, but it doesn't take much. I mean, it really...
Yeah.
You take a couple shots, you die.
And they do drop health fairly often, because when you kill an enemy, you stomp on them, and they drop an item. And usually health is pretty common if you need it.
If you've lost a lot of your health, It basically adjusts what drops you need based upon what you actually need in your inventory.
Useless stealth.
Yep, but stealth is a part of this game.
It is, because that's what we wanted.
But it's awkward. Let's talk about the combat. So, you may have seen in the B-roll, the second enemy that you fight in this game, I had to fight him like 5 or 6 times to beat him. Because they're like, hold back and block. If you hold back and block, you still take a ton of damage. Yeah. What I found is better is to just dodge to the left or dodge to the right. And as I played the game, I started to get better at it, but you still take damage when you dodge. No matter how perfectly you dodge, you'll still take at least a little bit of damage.
No, you don't.
Really?
You don't take damage dodging, no.
I thought for sure I took damage still. Really?
No. Guarantee. I went through whole sections without being touched.
Okay.
Because I've never used... after that block thing and I realized that you get hurt, I blocked by accident.
Why would you ever block then? Why would they even include the block?
Right. I mean, there's an upgrade tree. There's an upgrade tree for the block, but I haven't gone up it at all because I'm like, it's like, it drastically reduces until it removes damage from blocking. I don't care.
Well, the tree is for the baton,
right? But that's the blocking.
Well, there's like a couple that are for block, but then there's others that add combos to your melee,
right? But the middle one is blocking. The middle tree on the baton is blocking, and I haven't touched that because I don't block. Yeah. Because you still take damage. And if you go up the tree on the blocking enough, there is like mitigating. I think the second one is like it greatly reduces whatever that means, damage from blocking. And then there's one.
Why would you ever block? Why wouldn't you just dodge the whole game?
I'm sure there's some stuff you can't dodge. Like I haven't.
Maybe that's why I said like even when I dodge, I still lose health.
Well, I haven't run into that yet. I haven't run into a thing I can't dodge. Oh, okay. But and you do have to, when you're dodging, you do have to make sure that you that they're done with their combo, because otherwise, if you try to attack before that you will just hit each other at the same time.
Yep. Once you have the gun, we hinted at this earlier. Once you have the gun, a lot of the combos, how they work is you set it up with the baton. You hit him a few times, and then green weak spots will appear on the enemy, and that's when you squeeze the left trigger and then tap the right trigger to fire, and it will automatically aim at those weak spots, and you can finish off enemies. Once you upgrade the gun a couple times, you can finish off enemies with that one combo.
With that, or like even if you don't, like the gunshot, the quick gunshot usually stuns them enough that you can start another combo before they can recover. So,
and here's the other crap. So just out of nowhere, you just get attacked. I have not found an
effective way to deal with the little.
There's no way to deal with them without taking damage.
I guess you just. I mean, I can run over and stomp them, but one of them's gonna. I guess you're just supposed to shoot him.
Well, sometimes they jump out of a chest when you open a chest.
Yeah, I've seen that like twice, I think.
Yeah.
There's no way around that.
There's these little pods that sit on the ground that this head flies out of.
Yeah.
There's no way to really stop from losing health in that either. Like, there's just certain things in this game where you are going to lose health.
And like I'm like, okay, I'm supposed to see them and shoot them. If there's a way to detect which ones those are from a distance, I don't know. And like they have a range.
Oh yeah, like
I've never caught one before it got me
either.
And usually they will give you health a lot too. You can stomp on them and they'll give you health, but like. It's just that there's nothing satisfying about that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that's not fun, and it's not scary, and it's not interesting.
Yeah. If you get in fights in the early going with more than, like, 1 or 2 enemies, you might as well just restart. Like, until you get, like, leveled up. The first couple hours of this game I found to be very frustrating. Until I leveled up my baton a couple of times, and until I leveled up the hand cannon. Every fight was like literally like life or death, and it just seemed random as to whether I end up living or dying. It didn't seem to matter how good I was at dodging. Like, it just seemed like when I would finally complete the skirmish, a lot of times it was just luck whether I got through it or not. It wasn't like, oh, I did this differently this time, and now I've learned that, and I can apply that in my next fight. None of that seemed to work until I leveled up the baton and the hand cannon.
See, mine's almost the opposite, where I was like, I didn't find it difficult at all. I just was stunned that there was nothing else. Like, I was like, the dodging I thought was pretty... The dodging is pretty simple, but it's stupid. The way they do it is dumb. The way you dodge is you hold left or right.
That's it. Yeah.
On the same stick you use to move the character.
Yep.
and blocking is obviously down on that same stick.
Yep.
So as an enemy is going to approach you, there's no lock on, there's no I'm in fighting mode now, really, but you hold left or right, and when they attack you, you automatically dodge. And if you have to dodge again, you hold the opposite direction. If you try to hold the same direction twice, you won't dodge and you'll get hit.
Yeah.
So you'd have to dodge back and forth. The most I've seen is like 4, I think, from a particular enemy. Most of them will only attack twice at most. And once you're done, you're sure they're done with their combo, you can melee attack and counter. And there's a counter attack you can get from. That's the other thing on the blocking tree is you can once you block, you can do a low counter that knocks them off their feet. I didn't get that either. But
eventually you get like a heavy attack with the baton.
Yeah, the heavy attack can sort of hit multiple guys away from you, which is handy. But there's no real way to deal with an enemy that's behind you or really to the side.
Oh, and enemies just come out of nowhere. So there's monster closets all over this game.
Yeah.
Where enemies literally drop down from the sky behind you and attack you. Or you're engaged in a fight with one of them and 2 more will just appear out of nowhere and attack you from off camera. Like the game I found like after like a few hours almost became too easy. It was weird. It went from like I can't get over the hump to start the game to now I can't really die.
Well, that's what I mean by kind of I was surprised how little there was too, because like once I was like, okay, I can dodge like this and then I can attack, and that's it. Like that's it.
That's all there is.
That's the combat. And then like you get the gun and like okay, now I can extend my combo by shooting a guy if I want to use a bullet.
Yep.
Or I can, like, if I see them coming, I can try to take the legs out from one so I don't have to fight him yet. Or I can, if I see the acid spitters, I'll blow their heads off so they can't spit acid at me. Like, that helps. But, like...
Have you got to the point yet where the enemies start mutating?
Yeah. Like, you're supposed to... The tentacles come out and you're supposed to shoot the tentacles. And then, like, they can resurrect them if you knock them down and you don't stomp on them in time.
If you let the tentacles just go untouched, they turn into, like...
Yeah, they become more dangerous.
They become, like, a... different monster that's way harder to defeat.
It's just also this is the first shot. This is the first scene in the whole game.
Yeah,
and it reminds me of this is cool. Like this section here, because that's actually the terrorist activist leader you're seeing there, because they've attacked this colony thing. This area here is more interesting than anything I've seen in the game. Because the game is set in this prison industrial facility and everything is the same until you get out. There's brief things where you get out and like you make a run for these places, so you see like the outside, which is like a snowstorm and stuff. But like for the most part, it's all just giant brutalist metal hallways, and the setting works against the game in a way that Dead Space just doesn't, because Dead Space takes you a bunch of interesting places.
Yeah. Despite
its setting in kind of a similar sort of like
industrial
facility, like giant ship sort of thing. Yeah. It takes you through space sometimes, like all that stuff is the setting in this is just the same goddamn corridors over
just gray metal corridors with blood smeared everywhere.
Like at no point do you come out in a room and just be like, oh, what is this place? You don't care what this place is.
There's a couple moments in this where like the lighting in this game is really good.
Yeah, visually it's great. Like you want to talk about something that like feels like it's using the next gen system. I think this one for the most part does that.
It's a good-looking game, for sure.
Yeah, it's not in service to anything that keeps my attention very long.
Yep.
Because it's like, if you're not going to have a character I'm particularly invested in or a story I particularly care about beyond, like, get out of place, you're going to have to engage me with gameplay mechanics. And to be honest, Dead Space Dead Space is a fine narrative, and Isaac is an interesting sort of conundrum, but the thing that keeps you playing in Dead Space is how interesting the combat is.
The gun.
Yeah. All the different things you can try. There's nothing to try in this game.
Yeah.
Like, the combat is simply an obstacle to get to the next part of the game. And the next part of the game is A, going to look the same, and B, not going to tell you anything interesting about this character you already don't really care about.
Yeah.
And, like, I was very relieved when you texted and were complaining about the game, because I'm like, oh, thank God it's just not just me.
It's not going to be a big argument throwdown on the show.
Yeah, because because you like horror games more, and I didn't know if this was just me not caring about a horror premise. Or
no, definitely not. Definitely not. So you're probably watching this B-roll and you're like, damn, all this B-roll is just beating like zombies with a baseball bat. That's the game.
Pretty much, yeah.
Like, this B-roll is 100% representative of what it's like to play the game.
If you ignore the exciting parts.
Well, I did chop out all the load hiding things where you're like crawling like through.
There's a lot of that
through a vent, or you're shimmying along like this narrow passageway. Like they try. we all know now that this is hiding loading. And, they try to say this game's in one shot. It's like, is it really? If I have to keep crawling through, like ducks. And
also, who cares?
I know, it doesn't matter.
Who cares that the game... Like, it's cool that God of War did it, but
it's
like...
just a...
But that was also sort of a point of God of War. Had, like, the thing where it's like, you're kind of on this journey with them, and the idea was like, this doesn't stop. It's all one continuous thing they do together. Like, that's the point. They're stuck together. These two characters that don't particularly know how to relate to each other are stuck together for this long period of time, and you watch that relationship happen in real time in front of you in an unbroken shot. Beyond that, unless you do have a thematic or narrative reason to do it, it's not an impressive thing to do in a game, really. Like,
it's annoying.
As
I got really sick of shimmying in these areas and climbing through these air ducts.
As someone who has actually made a movie that is all one 10-minute shot, the impressive part of doing that is that everyone has to work together perfectly to get that shot.
Everybody has to nail it. Yeah. All the actors, the cameraman.
Kratos' character model is not going to blow a line. And honestly, I think the single shot thing worked against Ragnarok. Because you had to come up with all these ways to zoom in on them for the dreams. And just cut. Just have a cut.
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It does not matter.
It was worth. But there's no puzzles in this game. Like... There's like a couple times you slide a box around.
Yeah, move a box to get up on a thing.
And that's it.
Maybe if you move that box somewhere else, you get a secret thing, too. Like, that's as far as it goes. Like, there's Dead Space had way more interesting, puzzle stuff.
Also, the loads in this, after I died, the loading time seems to last like 30 seconds.
Interesting. I didn't notice the load times, really. I'm on Series X.
I played it on PS5, and after I die, it would be like 20 to 30 seconds loading the game.
I mean, it is notable, and I didn't really think about it too much until I played Midnight Suns. And
you realized there was none.
And the load time on Midnight Suns is like 2 seconds at most.
Like, I've been playing this alongside Midnight Suns, alongside Need for Speed Unbound. Need for Speed is
so
no loading times.
Absolutely.
And it's loading an open world.
Yeah.
Think about that. So, that
looks as good as this for the most part.
So, that's a little bit of an issue in the trying to hide the load times with these annoying sections of the levels.
I mean, I think, Final Fantasy VII Remake is, I think I established I really do not like the shimmy ducky crawly stuff.
No, I hate it too.
I know, like, God of War, I kind of let it go a little bit. I think Ragnarok could have dropped the continuous shot thing and been fine. I wouldn't have had a problem with that. But particularly in something like this, I'm like, just give me a little load time and an area. Give me discrete areas that I move between that do not make me do the shimmy.
Yeah.
I would much prefer that.
Yeah.
I don't mind a little load time. It means I don't have to watch him wiggle his way down a fucking narrow crevice.
Yep.
Especially when they never do anything. Like, so many times he was going down, I'm like, oh, this will be the crevice that he shimmies down, or something attacks him, or something comes out at the. Never happened. Like, it just over. Yeah. I'm like, this, because, and sometimes even it looks like they're setting it up and it doesn't happen. And I'm like, and that can be effective tension building, but you have to build the tension to something, and that doesn't really happen in this game. Like, I don't know. I guess that I don't know what I'm supposed to get out of this.
Yeah.
Like, what? Like, how am I supposed to feel about this game? Am I supposed to be afraid of things? Or
I don't know. I haven't found the game to be scary at all. Like, when I first started playing it, I thought the sound design was incredible, because you're constantly hearing all these moans and groans, and technically it is impressive. But
it is a very technically impressive game.
But what you find out is that, like, those sounds aren't coming from anything. There's nothing there.
No, you'll hear, like, and they're all, like, I guess you're supposed to assume they're locked behind the prison cell door.
But there's nothing there.
Or they're in the walls.
Like, at first I was like, oh, I'm scared to turn the corner because I'm hearing this shambling creature. Yeah. And there's nothing there.
Yeah.
They're just layering over these groans and sound
you hear
effects.
things and you think it's on the other side of the wall. When
and
you go in that room.
It's not.
There's nothing in the room.
There's nothing. Yeah, like
there's like a blood smeared in place. Like, they were just here. I'm like, so what? Like,
they're all were just here. Yeah, I totally get it. The monster closets drove me crazy in this game. Enemies just appearing out of nowhere, dropping in behind you, coming up from grates, dropping down from holes in the ceiling. Like, there's no way to prepare yourself for it. Like, they just...
And it's like, it's funny because, like, I know that those are supposed to be scary or build tension or whatever, but, like, and maybe if I liked how the game played, I would feel that. But the way I feel about the combat, every time something pops out of another grating, my reaction is always just like, oh, for fuck's sake. Come here, you asshole. It's such a... And maybe that's kind of in character for the. I mean, that character is kind of that kind of person. He's like he's a big doesn't. He's like what he doesn't really have a reaction to this beyond like, man, I want to go home.
Right. That's it. Yeah. Like the combat is clunky. His traversal is clunky AF. Like, if you try to, like, scramble and get away from enemies, forget it.
Oh, no.
There's no running away.
Even if you're trying to, like, because, like, you know, you can still stomp on enemies and pick up the stuff in the fight. And sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm low on life. I can't use the injector because that takes forever. Right? That is purely out of combat healing. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I'll stomp on the guys I've killed so far in this fight, and if one of them drops or maybe there's a health thing over on the side I haven't picked up yet, like, because they lay around sometimes when you enter a room. And just maneuvering over and getting the game to agree that this is what I want to prompt to interact with. By the time I get that done, sometimes I'm getting hit in the back again. Like, it's
no, the prompts don't pop up half of the time. There's all the time, I'll find a chest on the floor, and I'm like running in circles trying to get the icon to pop up. Like, it's just annoying little crap like that.
Yeah. And why?
I don't know.
Why?
Again, the consulting firm could have helped with like 20 different things in this.
There's
where it's just like
things that are
make it easier for the icons to pop up.
I know I say it a lot, but it's like there's so many things in this game that are solved problems.
Yeah.
Especially with how much it's like other games.
Yeah, it's settled law. That's why I said it's crazy that this game came out in 2022 and it's just like a game that was made in 2008.
Yeah, because there's an element when you find out that the guy who created Dead Space is making a spiritual successor in this for the next gen consoles.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my god, I can't wait to see what this guy has come up with in the meantime.
He hasn't come up with anything. Let's be honest, he just really hasn't, which is a shame.
And look, I mean, they're probably going to do really well. I would think. I've seen ads for this before movies in theaters.
Yeah,
like
seems like they're marketing
this real hard. Like, and it looks good when you see it. Like, everyone's like, oh, like, people are like, oh, what's that? What's it? And I heard when I was at a movie last week, and they ran the trailer for this ran before in the middle of all the other trailers. You know, it was and someone behind me goes. I heard someone behind me go, "That's a game." Like, and I'm like, I get it.
I can see where some people would say that. Yeah. So there are only like 5 weapons in the game. Again, no dismemberment gun where you change the orientation. Now, as we said, you can't shoot their knee and the bottom of their leg will blow off. And if you shoot them in the shoulder, sometimes the arm will tear off.
Yeah, but also, like, and again,
but you shoot their heads off, they can still find you and kill you. How do they know where you are?
In Dead Space, when you cut their heads off, they can't see you.
Yeah, they wander around. These guys, it's like their heads don't matter.
Even Eternal Darkness did that.
Right. Well, that also ended up being a way you could break the game.
Right.
In Eternal Darkness, if you haven't played it, a way to beat that entire game is walk into a room and just behead every enemy.
Unless you're playing against the green.
Oh, right.
The green ones still have a ghost head and they can see.
That's right. Yep.
Because green is hard mode.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. So you can take their heads off in this game. They still know exactly where you are.
Very
you
weird.
would think you could take their head off and then creep away. No. They know exactly where you are.
Now I'm thinking that's because they don't see with their eyes anymore. They're parasites in the
maybe
the tentacles are the things that are doing that.
Maybe.
I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt on that. But the thing is, like, there's a dismemberment system in this. There's, obviously you can cut everything off, basically. But in this, that's usually accidental, and if you're shooting, it's a test of kind of trying to be able to aim on the moving leg and try to hope that the character model doesn't suddenly twitch out of the way while you're trying. Whereas in Dead Space, because of the width of the beam, it's just a gameplay choice you make.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to cut the legs off this guy. Boom,
and he's going to lay there.
And now I have to deal with him in that form, but that's a choice I've made. Yeah. That doesn't exist in this
game. Just happens organically in this game.
And like, that's not interesting in comparison to how Dead Space works.
Yep. So there,
even with this, like, you see that little like targeting thing on there, and you think, oh, maybe that's how. No, it doesn't.
It's not. It doesn't act like Dead Space. It doesn't. So there are 5 weapons. The weapons, they're slow to give you new weapons in this game.
Very slow. Yeah.
Like at first, it's fast because you get the baton, you get the hand cannon, and then there's like a 3 or 4 hour stretch where you don't get a new weapon. It takes like forever to get another one. And once you do, you can use your Callisto credits to go to the Reforge machines, and you can upgrade them. And the animations for that stuff is pretty cool.
Yeah, like,
because you put your gun in there and it's this little pea shooter, and then you watch this machine construct it into this brand new thing that you can now use. And some you get more mileage on that stuff than others.
Super high-end 3D printing.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. But yeah, and all the weapons are like hand cannon, shotgun, assault rifle. There's one gun you get called the skunk gun, which is basically just a shotgun.
This is the original reveal trailer.
Yeah.
I guess it always did have that thing on the back of the neck. Like, I don't know.
Where's this guy? I haven't seen this guy in the game.
I don't know.
It's interesting that they decided to debut it.
I assumed this was the main character when I first saw it. So.
Yeah. but it's not. Or maybe originally he was.
Maybe he was.
Yeah,
They changed
and they
it.
decided.
Actually,
to
I
change
guess this guy dies here, so maybe he's just a random prisoner.
Oh, that's true. And then we
But it is
hinted-
very similar to how you wake up with all hell breaking loose in the game.
That's true. We talked earlier about you have telekinesis in this game. In fact, a lot of this game reminded me of like PsyOps, the Mind Gate conspiracy. When I first got the ability to use telekinesis, it seemed weak, other than being able to throw enemies into like moving machinery or whatever. And I didn't use it that much. As I started playing the game more, I started to realize that every room is set up to use the telekinesis. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to start spending some of my Callisto credits on upgrading the telekinesis. And it ended up becoming like a world slayer. You can go into every room in this game and just pick up enemies and just throw them. There are spiked walls in every room in the game. And if you're not using the telekinesis, you may not even notice it. But they're there. And once you start using the telekinesis, I thought the game became a cakewalk. As I started upgrading it and using it, I could just go into a room and just toss enemies into the walls and finish it like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's some enemies you can't really pick up, but...
What'd you say?
There's some enemies you can't really pick up.
Yeah, that are too big. But for the most of the enemies, you can pick them up and toss them into whatever you want. And if you keep upgrading that, eventually the tossing part becomes lethal. Like, you can just throw them into a wall and it'll kill them. It's one of the upgrades.
Damage from that.
From doing that. Yeah, so... You know, a lot of people may start playing this game and think that it's not important to use that. I found that in the later parts of the game, it was very valuable to have upgraded the telekinesis in this. And again, he gets his head shaved in this, and this game, it's like playing PsyOps, the Mind Gate conspiracy. Like, if you level up that part of his abilities. The enemies are repetitive. We already mentioned, though, that, like, eventually, like, they start to mutate in real time to become a tank. Like, if you don't... So you blow off their head... They grow tentacles out of the head, out of the missing head, and then if you don't take those tentacles out, it will transform into a tank that you have to fight.
They'll come out of different, like they come out of the stomach if you gut shot them as well. I've seen that.
Yep.
I haven't seen a lot of the next like the evolved forms because I do tend to make sure I kill them first because those things are annoying.
And then there's some stealth in the game, but it's not like eventually you learn that you can even kill the robots. Like they present the robots at first as like you got to sneak around these guys. So if they find you, they'll kill you instantly.
And at one point they're like, shoot them in the head. I'm like,
yeah. Then they're like, oh, then you realize 2 shots to the head, they die. Like, why was I sneaking away?
Why didn't you just tell me that?
I know. It's just the little stuff like that adds up in this game. That you get to the end of it and you're like, wait a minute, like why were these decisions made? Like they just don't make a lot of sense. And then, you know, a lot of people play these games for atmosphere. Well, this game, as I mentioned earlier, it's claustrophobic because you're in, as Matt mentioned earlier, in these hallways smeared with blood, but it's all just like metal and truss and stuff like that. So it is an oppressive, claustrophobic game to play, but again, you interact with other people so often that it really takes away the sense of isolation that you had in the first game and you have in games like Metroid Prime. So if you're one of those people who like to play these games for that, it's lacking in this game, for sure. You're constantly chattering, you have a little radio that's always going in your ear. There's an inmate who is helping you throughout pretty much the whole game. And so you're constantly chatting with him. You'll meet up with him at different parts of the game. And
you're also just waiting for him to betray you because, like,
right? Because you know it's going to happen.
Like, what else is going to happen in this story? You know, like,
yeah, exactly.
Like, I don't know if he actually does, but like,
I'm not going to. We don't talk about that.
How else is that going to play out? Because otherwise, you're going to get off that moon pretty fast.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm not going to spoil anything. We don't do that here on GameFace. And then there is post-launch support coming. There's a new Game Plus and a hardcore mode coming on February 7th. The season pass with cosmetics are coming in February, March-ish. There's a horde mode coming in the spring. There's new story content coming sometime next year. So there's a lot of add-ons that are coming to this game eventually. However, Matt, with all that in mind, can you tell someone to buy this game?
No.
Me either. I can't.
Not for $70.
No, not for 70. I wouldn't even say for 60 I wouldn't either.
No.
The game's like 12, 13 hours long, so right around the same length as Dead Space. So it's not that the length of it is deterring me from telling people to play it. It's just...
So I don't want more.
It literally, when the game ends, you're ready for it to end, I guess is the best way I can put it. So I would not recommend this at 60 or 70. I think $40 is probably the sweet spot for this game.
It's all right, yeah.
And I think with this publisher, it may not be that long. It'll be interesting to see how this game sells.
Yeah, I think it'll do well.
Because the reviews are, what's its Metacritic right now? Around a 70-something? It's not great.
No, but it's heavily advertised and people have heard of it, and that's that. I mean, it's a first impression kind of thing. I do think the other game that came out the same day is going to have better legs.
Yeah.
Because of what it is and the word of mouth on it. So
I just don't think that genre tends to sell quite as well.
yeah, I don't think this genre is all that amazing either in terms of sales.
Yeah.
Like, especially an M-rated, you got an M-rated game that isn't going to appeal the same way as Midnight Suns.
Yeah, and if you couldn't tell from the B-roll, this is a hard M. This is not one to buy little Billy or Susie.
Well, if the little Billy or Susie have seen John Carpenter's The Thing, they're going to be fine, I think.
Yeah, the gore in this is okay. I feel like it could have been better.
It's a little silly, especially like the obviously it has the gory kills of the main character, who's, again, what's his name?
Jacob. Yeah. Jacob Lee, I think his name is.
Never would have remembered that. I remember the guy you're working. I don't remember his name.
Yeah, it's Jacob Lee.
Elias. I remember the.
Yeah, you remember the prisoner, but you didn't.
I remember the actual character. I remember the guy who actually said things.
That's funny.
But yeah, I don't remember what I was saying.
Well, we were talking about which would sell better.
Yeah, but I don't remember what I was just saying.
Oh, okay.
But I think in the long run, this will probably the kills you get from. Like when he gets killed, it has this sort of the gory, kind of like Tomb Raider.
It's like Resident Evil, Tomb Raider. Yeah.
Most of that just looks silly.
Yeah.
To me. Like,
and then you watch them, and it's okay the first time, and there's only like it seems like 10 or 12 of them.
Because that's one of the season pass things is more
kills,
ways for him to die, which
that's
is
hilarious.
Very weird.
That is very weird.
Like when there was you showed a kill in the B-roll a little while ago that was like he grabs his jaw and wiggles it back and forth until the front of his face
rips his jaw off. Yeah.
But that model of him with the face ripped off, like that face rip-off version of his model shows up a lot.
It's used in the other kills where his head's ripped in half, basically.
Yeah, it's just, you're seeing the same thing a lot.
It's
sort of
model.
repurposed into a different form.
Which seems so weird.
It's a little bit. I mean, look, like I don't want to get too critical of the random gore shit, but it's like even Mortal Kombat varies that pretty well.
Yeah.
Like, and Mortal Kombat's the game series that used to use multiple, like they used to throw 14 large intestines in and call it an exploding body. Like, you gotta step your game up here.
Yeah.
In these days.
Yeah. I'm disappointed in this game, Matt.
Same. I mean, I don't think I was anticipating it quite the way you were.
Yeah.
But I
like horror games a lot more.
expecting something better than this.
Yeah. I didn't expect to. I know you feel like there's a huge difference between Dead Space and this. I think there isn't. And that's the problem, is that Dead Space is 14 years old and this game is almost identical to it. All that time later, it doesn't feel like it's learned anything from other games.
I just don't see the identical. I mean, I do in terms of like kind of presentationally, like guy with a camera behind his shoulder going through a zombie infested space place thing, but like Dead Space has so much more interesting choices.
I'm not saying which is better.
Like,
I think Dead Space is probably better, but
that's what I mean is like Dead Space is so defined by that combat and that setting and that way of interacting with everything and that silent protagonist being part of the mystery. Like all the things I associate with Dead Space that make it Dead Space and not just over-the-shoulder horror game, that's not here.
Yeah,
this is just another over-the-shoulder horror game, and I would think it's while definitely you're going to compare it to Dead Space because of who made it and sort of the setting to some degree. I think it's a lot more fair to Dead Space to say that this is just sort of an alternate universe. What might have been made in 2008 instead of Dead Space. Like, this is a more boring way to do what Dead Space did. And they're both just taking from Resident Evil 4.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest flaw here, I think, is that it's not really doing anything different from Resident Evil 4, which isn't a killer, but you have to do some things better.
It did nothing better. Nothing better than RE4.
So it's like, if you're not going to innovate, you have to execute, and I don't think this does either.
Yeah,
that's my issue with it.
Let's take a look at chat.
And I don't even think the telekinesis thing. The telekinesis thing, you're right, it does become very powerful, but I feel like it feels like a band-aid to the boring combat rather than something that works in concert with the combat, like in Dead Space with the slow-mo thing, like with the time distortion thing that gives you a little more time to cut a thing off, it gives you a little more time to aim, like. Whereas this one is just like, oh, it's so hard to fight multiple enemies. Let's just like have them be able to throw them four into grinders before the.
No, I think you're right. I think that was a way to remedy that for sure.
I just don't find that interesting. I mean, you're right. It is a very viable tactic, but it's just.
And I don't think you realize it until you try to use it, and then you're like, wait a minute, there's actually spiked walls all over the place in this game.
Yeah.
It's really, you're like, why are they there?
Well, once you realize there's
no reason narratively for them to be there.
It's like because it's just. That's kind of. I guess that's part of the reason for the boring setting is like it's just like this random industrial complex prison.
Yeah. So
things are just left everywhere.
They just have spike walls on the wall.
But there's plenty of ways to kill monsters doing that, and it's almost like habit. Once you go into a room and there's a bunch of things coming out, you're just like, okay, boink, 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 boink,
you can do it.
And then like shoot the head off the spitter guy, and then you'd finish that, and then four guys pop out of like hidden compartments, and you're like, oh, for fuck's
Or they drop down from the ceiling.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, we got to do this again.
Let's take a look at chat and see what you guys are saying. If you have any questions about this game, feel free to hit us up. Eth Demon says it's too short for 70, but that's my hot take. While not a hard rule, I tend to follow $2 per hour. Okay.
You'll never go to a movie at that
rate. And I mean, I don't go to movies anymore. Justin Horman brings up a good point. Resident Evil 4 is, 17 years old now? Yeah. And they're still making games, like, off of that template.
Isn't it 18 now? In 2004?
Yeah, I guess it would be. Yeah. Yep. Very Gooster. After this review and some other podcasts, I feel like I've seen everything I need for this game, and I'll just see where the Dead Space remake lands. Yep. I think that's a smart way to go at it.
I am very much looking forward to the Dead Space remake. Like, this game really retaught me appreciation for Dead Space.
That Japanese dude brings up a good point too. No replay value. There really isn't. It's a completely linear game.
I don't know why
the scenarios don't change.
I don't know why you'd want to experience any of this again.
Yeah,
like it's not fun with a wacky story like Resident Evil, or like fun bosses or fun set piece encounters, and it's not an interesting sort of combat mechanic like Dead Space where you're like, oh, what happens if I take this guy out like this? There's nothing like that in here.
Yeah.
It's just you're just getting through it. It's practically a walking simulator in that sense.
Yeah,
like
a little bit.
They're going through the narrative, and there's little extra things, but the extra things you find are not interesting or tidbits of the world building. They're just things that are going to make the rest of the game a little easier because you now have more equipment or more money.
Not Cirque says, I love this game. It's such a palate cleanser from God of War.
All right.
Squishy Muffin asks, can you see them improving with the sequel?
Maybe.
Yeah. But it's been 14 years and he didn't improve on it. Maybe not.
Like maybe the next one will be as good as Dead Space.
Barry Lomax, I've heard it's described as a QTE on rails. No, that's not accurate. There are QTEs, but
I get where that's coming in terms of how the dodge system works, because it does have that element without a prompt, obviously.
Yeah.
But no, it's not that restrictive.
The QTEs aren't that often. Maybe the B-roll fooled you into thinking that's the case. Hail to Starscream. The enemies look so boring compared to the Necromorphs. Yeah, they're repetitive.
They're just there's nothing in there you haven't seen already.
Yeah, and they're repetitive. Like, they don't change up the enemies enough throughout the course of the game.
Yeah, even when the tentacles evolve them, they just become a bigger, lumpier version of what you already fought. It's not even as interesting as like when the tentacles pop out of the heads from the Ganados in RE4.
Yeah, you're right. Sneaky, is it like BioShock? No,
not at all.
That's blasphemy comparing it to BioShock. I wish it were like BioShock. I want to go up and hit some. I saw some of you guys contribute with Twitch Prime earlier, and I want to thank you guys. If I can get back to the top very quickly here. Let's see. Oh, the scroll.
That's very slow. There it goes.
What is it doing?
Oh, it's loading previous chat.
Oh. I think it won't let me go all the way back, unfortunately. Sorry, guys.
What are you trying to get to?
I just want to thank people for Twitch Prime.
Mine doesn't have that limitation because it's a phone. I don't see anyone.
El Guapo, do you think there's enough foundational parts in this game that would warrant a sequel?
Steve D just subscribed.
Thank you, Lesteved. Steve D.
I gotta order some more cream liqueur.
Yeah, thank you. 32 months. That's awesome.
Is it cream? It's LS Cream.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. But the website is Cream LS.
I believe so, yeah.
I got to order some more of that for Christmas.
Have you gone through what you had before?
Oh, we drank that in one day last year. Like that was long gone.
I'm out too, Steve. already gone through mine. I just
No, they have him. Oh, he just gifted a bunch. He gifted 10.
Oh, thank you, Lesteved. Thank you for gifting all
they
this
have
stuff,
it at,
man. That's awesome.
What was it? Total Wine here carries it.
Okay. Oh, that's great. Sleeping Turtle 3, is it a short campaign? It was like 12 or 13 hours, I think.
It's standard horror game.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same length as OG Dead Space was. Yeah. Lesteved, I will send some. All right, man. That liquor is perfect for the holidays.
It's excellent.
It
really is.
It's exactly what you want at Christmas parties.
Tastes like Christmas.
Yeah, it tastes like Christmas. I like that. So anyway, there you go. That is a Callisto Protocol. I'm not going to lie. I'm disappointed in this game. It is one of the bigger disappointments of the year for me. Someone who does really enjoy horror games and horror films.
And someone who doesn't really, I was like, oh, this one looks like something I could get into, and then nope.
Yeah.
And not because of the horror aspect, just because I don't think there's nothing in here to sink your teeth
it doesn't have a spark.
No.
I think that's really what I would say overall. It lacks that spark, that USP, that unique selling proposition, that one reason that you can tell everybody that they need to play it. Like, I just can't find it. I've struggled.
At most, you're like, well, it looks nice.
Right. Yeah. It is pretty, but it's also not like a next-gen showcase either. It's not like a game that you would buy just to show off your PS5 or your Xbox Series X to, like, your buddy or your parent or whatever. So it just kind of falls in the middle in that way. So disappointed. I do think they'll probably make a sequel because I do think this will probably sell well enough to warrant a sequel. And I hope that they are a little more adventurous and a little more brave.
I think it'll sell very well. I think the ad campaign tends to dictate that, especially for games with no previous reputation.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll sell very well.
Okay. Any guess on how much it'll sell before end of year?
I don't know.
A couple million units probably
2 million.
Be my guess.
Yeah.
Yep. Lesteved says Bevmo, too. He has his drink at Bevmo. That's huge to get into those two places. That's what it's all about if you're manufacturing liquor. Okay, let's move on. We're going to talk next about a game that Matt has hinted at a couple times already by mentioning that it came out on the same day as the Callisto Protocol. It is a completely different game from the Callisto Protocol, and you want to talk about a palate cleanser from God of War or the Callisto Protocol, I would argue this is it, and that is Marvel's Midnight Suns. Now, before we get too far into this, I'm just going to let you know I have only played the first hour of this game because I knew I played the first hour and I was like, Matt is going to love this effing game. And I knew, I'm like, he's probably going to hate Callisto Protocol, so I'm going to plow forward in Callisto Protocol, so one of us will have played more of that because I knew he was going to play more than me of Marvel's Midnight Suns. And as it turns out, I was exactly right. Matt, you spent, 20-some hours on this already?
About 25 hours.
And I'll say this, too. I really liked the first hour of this. It was torture for me to not play more of Midnight Suns and go back and play these other two games, and we'll get to the other game here in a minute. These other two games that were really frustrating and annoying for me. I wanted to continue playing Midnight Suns. Matt, tell us how you love it. Tell us why you love it.
Because it is XCOM with Marvel.
It really is that simple.
With the one thing removed that I don't like about XCOM, which is the time limit.
Yeah, I don't like permadeath in XCOM either. You can turn that off now.
Yeah, permadeath I don't really... Well, that's the thing, is like permadeath is annoying because a lot of times it's not your fault.
Right.
But the main thing I don't like about XCOM is you're on a timer between missions. Like if you don't do this in time, the bar's going to fill... Threat bar's going to fill up and aliens take over the world no matter how well you did already. And I don't like that. In fact, when I have replayed XCOM 2, I have used a cheat engine thing that disables the threat bar.
No.
That just lets me play missions however
Interesting.
I want. And like, I mean, you can still loot, obviously, so the threat basically there becomes my guys could die, which is a more interesting problem for me. Marvel, there is no time limit. You're supposed to be trying to stop Lilith.
This is, by the way, a turn-based strategy game like XCOM. Some people may not even know what XCOM is.
Turn-based strategy game with a card system
where your attacks are all cards.
And so you can tell it's by the same people, but it does not play exactly the same in the sense that XCOM is a more cover-based stop.
Yep.
You're trying to keep your guys behind cover and shoot from behind cover. And the big change in terms of gameplay is one of the key things of XCOM is when you try to, when you pick an enemy to shoot at, you'll get a percentage that tells you a percentage chance of hitting the enemy. And one of the constant problems in XCOM is that you miss.
Mm-hmm.
You could have a 95% chance of hitting, and you're
And
still
somehow
you're
you
gonna get
still
that 5%.
miss that attack.
You're going to get that 5%, way more than 5%
More than 5% of the time. It's so
oddly enough.
weird.
There is no way to miss in this game.
Yeah.
You
That's great.
all attacks hit, because they specifically said in an interview a while ago they had that missing ability in this, and the thing they learned from playing it themselves and from focus testing is that it doesn't feel like a superhero if you miss your punches.
Yeah, it's absurd for a superhero.
So the only difference in this is you'll hit every time, but there are ways to pump up the power of things. So there's critical hits, and there's ways to have card synergies work that make your attacks way, way, way more powerful, like 4 or 5 times more powerful in terms of HP damage sometimes. And the way it works is you have a hand of every character has a deck of 8 cards, and you have to have a certain number of attacks, which are just obviously attacks, a certain number of abilities, which are abilities that will do various things. They'll put up a shield, or they'll let you do something that knocks a guy over or something, and you'll have a heroics, which use heroic points, which are generated by playing the other cards. So every card that doesn't use heroic points has a little heroic point thing in the corner of the lower left corner, and that gives you that many points for playing that card.
Yep.
And you can use those heroic points to do the powerful abilities, which are the heroic abilities, and those are the really strong things.
Flashy, big, almost like finishers.
Yeah, and some of those are like, there's Iron Man has one that hits everybody, and so basically you have those 8 cards. You can swap those out and power them up, and there's a whole bunch of systems where you get more of those cards, and you have two of the same card. You can merge them together for a cost and make them a powerful version of that card, and you can find rarer cards and epic cards and legendary cards that are way more powerful from various, from missions and from getting items from missions. Like, there's ways to get, and so you build the deck of 8. It's always has to be 8. You take 3 characters on a mission, and basically you mix each of their decks of 8 cards into a deck of 24 cards, and you draw 6 at the beginning, and that's your hand. And as you use them up, you draw more at the beginning of each turn, and that's what you can play. So you don't have access to everybody's abilities at all times, but you have this access to this hand of cards. And sometimes that hand of cards is your friend, and sometimes it is not.
Before we get too much further into the mechanics, what's the plot in this? Because a lot of people are like, Midnight Suns. What the hell's Midnight Suns? So a lot of people aren't even familiar with it.
So Midnight Suns is a kind of off branch of Marvel. It comes from an early 90s thing where, and then it was called Midnight Suns, S-O-N-S. Mm-hmm. They changed it to Suns, S-U-N-S, because there's also girls.
Yep, now there's girls in the group. Yeah.
And there always were.
Oh, there were?
Some, but no one cared.
It's like, whatever, it's 1992.
Yeah, that's basically it.
Pretty much.
So Midnight Suns came about mainly because in the very beginning of 90-91, I think it was, Marvel put out a new Ghost Rider series, starring a new Ghost Rider. So not Johnny Blaze. If you saw the old guy in the biker gear at the beginning of the B-roll there, that's Johnny Blaze. He was the original Ghost Rider in the 70s. They came up with a new guy named Dan Ketch, who was the new Ghost Rider. And the new Ghost Rider was possessed by a different demon. And he was more about vengeance. It was the spirit of vengeance stuff, and that was always there with Ghost Rider, but it was very emphasized in the early 90s. Ghost Rider was a very, very edgy, very he had the penance stare where he stares at someone and they feel all the harm they've caused other people in their whole lives tenfold all at once, and that's his finishing move, and kind of
just crushing depression.
Yeah, and that series became a massive hit. Ghost Rider blew up.
It was huge, yeah.
And because of that, Marvel went all in on sort of the dark magic-y stuff, and they emphasized Doctor Strange, and they brought back Damian Hellstrom, and they brought in Johnny Blaze back there's a Ghost Rider Johnny Blaze team-up book called Spirits of Vengeance, where he looked very much like that but younger, and he had the shotgun he had in that cutscene that shoots hellfire, but only at the guilty. And
it won't fire on innocent people.
and that's actually if you have like Marvel Unlimited or something, or the internet, you go find Spirits of Vengeance from the early 90s, and it's just like a 13-issue series of Johnny Blaze and Ghost Rider like traversing the United States, like righting wrongs, like an old 1970s like Fall Guy show movie or something. Yeah, it's really funny. It's real fun. They fight Venom at one point too, but just like in this game. But eventually, as they sort of kind of created, and Morbius was part of that, and all these things. And so basically, as they did on Blade, the Night Stalkers were that group that they hunted vampires. So, and every time they started kind of grouping them under this banner of the Midnight Suns, as like, this is the dark supernatural corner of the Marvel universe, and so that's what that meant. And they brought them back in more recent years as the Midnight Suns, SUNS, as like a specific team that like deals with supernatural bullshit, and that is what they are. That is what they are in this. And
someone's trying to revive Lilith, right?
Yeah, so there's some new stuff in this. So like Lilith's always been sort of around, but the new stuff is the Caretaker, who is Lilith's sister, and the Hunter, who's on your side.
The Caretaker is actually on your side.
Caretaker's your side. Yeah, on your side. She's against her evil sister, and she, along with Agatha Harkness, who you will know from WandaVision, Catherine Hahn, who has been a character in the Marvel comics for forever, like as an old weird lady who always had her own agenda. She and Agatha in the 1600s raised this kid to become the Hunter, who was the child of Lilith. Once Lilith went off to become evil, raised the Hunter, they call them, to oppose Lilith and defeat Lilith, and they did. Back in like 1610 or something. And then after that was done, the Hunter was killed in that fight, and they put the Hunter to rest, and Lilith went to rest in another coffin somewhere else in the world. And at the beginning of this game, Hydra resurrects Lilith to take over the world, because that's what Hydra does.
I love the scine where they go, "Hail Hydra!" Hail Hydra. Like, it took me back to like being a kid again, basically.
Hail Hydra! That was ruined for me because Lindsay Ellis did a thing where it's like all the guys doing the salute in Captain America, "Hail Hydra!" And she goes, "Hang glider!" And that's all I hear now, because it looks like they're holding onto a hang glider when they do the salute.
That's funny.
And so Lilith comes back and takes over Hydra, basically, and Doctor Strange and Iron Man realize this is happening because science is going wrong. Everything's going weird. Like the rules of reality are going weird. And they end up getting found by Caretaker, who brings them to the Sanctorum, Doctor Strange's house, basically gets assaulted by everything in the world, and he realizes he has to go talk to the Caretaker, and so they go to the Abbey, which is a little like an old abbey in a pocket dimension outside of Salem, Massachusetts, because of course it is.
Yeah.
And they get there, and the Caretaker's like, "Yeah, this is all going wrong. These are the Midnight Suns." So her Midnight Suns team is Blade, Magic, Ileana Rasputin, Colossus' younger sister, Robbie Reyes, who is the current Ghost Rider, who drives a muscle car. There's a lot of Ghost Riders now. There's a prehistoric Ghost Rider who rides a woolly mammoth. I'm hoping he shows up in the MCU at some point. But
I did not recognize most of the Midnight Suns.
The new ones, and Nico is she's from Runaways, which is interesting because Runaways was a kind of a niche comic that a lot of people like, but they did have a TV series, and she's actually voiced by the woman who plays her in the live action TV series, which is interesting.
They're really scraping the bottom of the barrel with Marvel at this point. Like, they're just finding any IP that they can use and say Marvel.
Well, the Runaways was that was a separate. That's not MCU.
Oh, really?
It was like a separate thing. I don't remember where that came from.
I'm not familiar with it at all.
It's about it's a super team of teenagers whose parents are all supervillains, and they don't want to be supervillains, so they all run away together and form a team. It's one of the most famous things in it is Molly is a young, I think she's like 10, but she has super strength. She's invulnerable and has super strength. And at one point, the Punisher mouths off to her, so she just punches him in the stomach, and it's like the hardest he's ever been hit, and he just can't get up for a while. And like no one ever lets the Punisher forget he got beat up by a tiny little girl ever again. But Nico was the oldest, and she has a staff called the Staff of One that can cast any spell, but it can only do it once.
Oh,
so and it's like one word or a simple ask of it, so you have to constantly be creative in how you ask it to cast spells, because if you say fire, this was my thing, and I don't know if they've ever addressed this in the comics. My thing is, okay, fireball, you can cast fireball, you can't cast fireball again, you're done. That was the one time you can get. What if I say fireball +1? What if I say super fireball? Like stuff like that. That's fun. So I would say she is the most obscure character in this game.
I mean, the Midnight Suns, to me, like, I looked at them, I'm like, who the hell are these people?
Well, you know Blade.
Right, but, like, the other three, I was like...
Well, you know Blade, you would recognize Robbie if he was in Ghost Rider. You at least know it was Ghost Rider. It's a guy with a flaming skull. Like, who else is that? I guess Ileana is not very well known.
Yeah.
I know her because I'm an X-Men fan. She's one of the New Mutants. She's been around forever. And Blade, obviously, is Blade. Yeah. So they're her team, and Strange and Tony basically say, okay, we'll work with you. And so you go back to try to, like, rescue Wanda, who's trying to hold the line at the Sanctum Sanctorum, and you fail. Like, Hydra steals the Sanctum Sanctorum. You literally pick it up out of the ground, and Venom shows up all powered up by demon magic, and there's nothing you can do. And so your base of operations becomes this Abbey, and that is basically the home base in equivalent of, like, an XCOM game.
Yeah.
And so
which is a big deal in XCOM, the home base.
And it's a big deal here. Like, every day you play the Hunter. Like, your character is the Hunter. Hunter is a new character.
You create your own character.
Male or female. Although they only refer to Hunter as they, so as not to have to record the lines twice. So technically you could argue that the Hunter is non-binary.
Right.
So the caretaker, Sarah, and the Hunter are new characters. I don't think the caretaker is an existing character.
I've never seen her,
but neither have I. So if I haven't seen it,
probably not.
Because the whole Lilith caretaker Hunter triangle is new to me.
Okay,
so, as far as I know,
it's new.
So you're basically trying to build Hunter up to become powerful enough to be able to fight Lilith, right? As time goes on, you have to sort of build. So so here's the interesting thing about this game that I didn't expect, really, because I watched some early stuff and trailers and things, but it didn't show a lot of gameplay, really.
No,
I did not realize that half this game is basically a dating sim.
Yeah.
Like you are spending a lot of time interacting with the various characters, building your relationships and friendships with these characters, hanging out with them. Like this is hanging out with Spider-Man.
Yep.
And the more you build your friend, and every your dialogue choices, they'll like
Netflix
or dislike
and
them.
chill.
You pick up gifts to give them, and like they like. You have to decide which gifts they'll like and stuff.
Yeah. I was surprised that was a part of the game too. Honestly.
And like it's kind of great.
Yeah.
Like there's a whole subplot where like
it's fun. You're allowed. Yeah. It's like you're letting your fantasies go wild with.
And there's a whole subplot
IP.
where the characters are like Blade is kind of interested in Captain Marvel, and so like. You work with him to like concoct this whole thing where you like the Eurogamer review mentions this. Which I'm bringing this up because I know Eurogamer already mentioned it, so it's not. It's at least you're only kind of
spoiling something. Yeah.
Like so he works up like a way to have like a book club with Captain Marvel, but then Captain America's like, oh, that sounds fun. I want to come too.
The third wheel.
And Blade. This is a quote from the Eurogamer review. Blade is too shy to say no, which is not a sentence I thought I would ever read. Blade is too shy.
It doesn't add up. Yeah.
And like it's funny because and so it happens like and it works out. But like it's funny because it's like it works because it gives you something for the characters to do and something to interact with. But it also makes Blade kind of adorable. Yeah. And that is not a thing that happens very often.
It doesn't.
But it works.
That makes sense for his character.
No, it does make because he's just a guy.
Yeah.
But like it's funny. I like the dichotomy of like he's a big tough dude and he's kind of the leader of the Midnight Suns because the oldest one of the four of them. But he still gets kind of he's intimidated by the most powerful person on the planet, who is Captain Marvel. Yeah. Captain Marvel is very, very powerful, and she has no need for anyone.
Yeah,
like that's part of her character. And it's fun. Like it's really if you care about these characters already, there's a lot of fun stuff in there to deal with. And then the missions you go on. Are all these turn-based things where you go out and basically usually you're beating up Hydra, but there's also like supernatural things, demon dogs. As the game progresses, the story progresses, you're fighting more and more supernatural things and not just like soldiers.
Right.
It feels a little like the Hydra stuff.
Hail Hydra!
Yeah, it feels a little like the early stuff with Hydra is like, oh, you're
fan
much
service.
More. Firaxis is more comfortable. Nobody cares about Hydra. Firaxis is more comfortable like dealing with like military guys running around.
Right.
And then you slowly.
It's more XCOM.
Yeah, you kind of work your way into the weird shit, much like XCOM. Early on you're just fighting sort of random soldiers, and then you start to fight guys that can possess people and shapeshift and do all that.
Yeah,
yeah. And there's a good progression to that, and I will say. They did a fantastic job making everything feel big and strong and impactful and powerful. Like
the attacks in this are insane. I mean, you can see a lot of this
card
B-roll.
you play in this makes you feel like a badass.
Yeah,
like it's really well done. There's a knockback system.
We should have mentioned that. That's a huge part of the game.
There's a key thing to it where like you have 3 card plays per turn. So you can play 3 cards, and then you have to end your... And you play 3 cards. You can have, I think it's 2 redraws, so you can replace cards in your hand if you don't want to use one or can't use one. You can move once, which means reposition a character to put them somewhere.
Line them up.
Yeah, because one thing to note that's very different from XCOM, you can play cards from anywhere on the field.
Right.
Like, wherever you are, you can play an attack card, and you pick any enemy on the field, and your character will move to them and hit them. Like, you do not need to worry about positioning. Unless you want to push an enemy into a specific thing.
Yeah, because there's a mechanic in this. It's almost like bowling.
Yeah, you can knock an enemy
as like bowling pins.
Bunches of, you can knock them into things. You can knock them into things that will stun them.
You can knock them into other characters. Yeah.
You can knock them in, eventually you can upgrade where you knock them into your own character and it doesn't hurt them, and they can punch them and get more damage.
Yeah.
You can push objects into them if you spend hero points. Like you can throw. One of my favorite things in the game is like you can spend a whole turn wailing away on a guy and using superpowers and Iron Man's repulsor blast, and Carol's throwing cosmic energy at them, and if the only thing you have left, you run out of card plays, you can still use hero points to interact with objects. So there have been times when I threw the entire energy of a sun at a guy and he still had like 4 hit points, so I killed him by picking up a bunch of newspapers and smashing him on the head with them. And that is hilarious.
That's great.
That is really fun. And there's all these ways to kind of cheat your way into more damage, and that's a lot of fun. Like, you spend the hero points to push the crate and hit these guys again, and that's what you need.
It's not cheating though; it's being creative,
right? But it feels like you're getting away with something.
It does.
Like, that's the genius of the design of that. And like, so even though you're done with your card plays, you've still got some more. And you've got quick cards where if you kill a guy when you play a card that is quick as a property, you get that card play back. So it's like free kills.
Right.
There's so much in there, and there's so many things you can come up with, and here's the other thing that's very important about this. There are no bad characters in this game. There are bad character combinations. Like, you can end up with. I've ended up with a couple characters that just don't do enough damage because they're both support characters, basically. But they're all good. They all have uses. I don't like Ghost Rider very much because he. A lot of his moves damage himself to do damage to other characters, and I don't like characters.
I hate characters that do that. Yeah,
but there are other. There's Nico, and depending on how you play your Hunter, because Hunter can go light or dark, based on what your morality choices are. That's in here too.
Yeah.
You can heal pretty effectively, so like you can use Ghost Rider, damage yourself pretty hard, and then heal him up, and then you get hero points for doing that. So you can play more stuff. Like it's so. I have been up since 3 a.m. at least 3 nights in a row here playing this game because I don't realize how late it goes.
I'm not surprised to hear that at all. I played an hour of this and I'm like, this is Matt's forever game.
Like, if you haven't pieced this one together, I love this game.
MHG Immortan Joe asks, is this relationship side required for progress, or is it just for backstory and lore?
I wouldn't want to try to not do it because you get so many good bonuses from the friendships. Like, the friendships... they give you bonus stuff both for you, and they give you bonus stuff for the character. So like now, because I'm such good friends with Captain Marvel, periodically if she KOs somebody, she has a 40% chance of getting counter, which means anyone who attacks her, because once you finish your turn, the enemy goes.
Yeah.
If you have counter, as long as you're not dazed or get like a status effect that takes you out of the mix, if you have counter, you counter hit everyone that attacks you.
Oh.
Carol I've killed a guy with her. She got the counter status, which means I think didn't even touch me or something like that. And then like 4 guys attacked her in the enemy turn, and she killed them all. Like, she's got. I have racked up like 9 kill streaks with her.
Wow.
Like, she is probably my favorite character so far. I don't have everybody on the team yet. Wolverine's about to join. I've got a few more to pick up, but like. Yeah, I love the way, and also like one thing I think is interesting, especially given the promotional material. Everybody's in their fancy Midnight Suns magic evil looking suits. All that. Everybody spends most of their time in the normal superhero
and just their street clothes.
And also the street clothes. They wear street clothes at the Abbey during the day. Like, the way it works is you get up in the morning and then you can go do your business where you have to go like. You go talk to everybody that needs to be talked to. You go talk to Tony and Strange down in the Forge because like you get stuff from the missions the previous day, and you can turn in like the goo for like new cards, and then you can do a research just like XCOM. You do research to add another thing. You can pay money to add on parts to the Forge or the training area or the
there's sim elements to it.
It's just like XCOM. There's all these interacting systems and parts that like as you upgrade them, you get more and more better things. it's horrifyingly compelling. It's just you lose hours to this thing, and it's so, and there's a whole, the Abbey, like outside of it, there's a whole area outside of it, and there's all these puzzles to solve, and there's this huge map to open, and like mysteries to open, and more items to get, and you get like words of power that like open more things, and you get all these chests, and you get these arcane keys you can use to open all these arcane chests, and the chests, depending on how powerful they are, will open more, and you get arcane knowledge by reading things and doing magic stuff, and as you level those up, the lower level chests no longer take arcane keys to open, so you can just open, and they reset every few days, so you can just keep opening stuff and getting more stuff. It's
systems on systems on systems.
And here's the thing that I think is interesting. So I'm going to get into some stuff that I think is not bad, but
I was going to ask if you had any
issues.
Criticisms of the game.
Well, here's my criticisms. My criticisms are mostly technical.
It doesn't look amazing.
No, it doesn't look amazing.
It doesn't look bad.
I don't care about that.
Yeah.
I mean, it runs on everything. I'm in there. There's a Switch version coming. Yeah. So it's definitely running on Unreal in a way that is not super impressive. But I mean, look, some of this stuff looks really cool.
Oh yeah. I think the attacks in the game look amazing.
It does a lot of it does that very good justice for the most part.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, you get a close up of something. You're like,
yeah.
But for the most part, it's fine. But the other thing, so I have two things. You can pick which one you want first. First thing is technical problems, and the other thing is a design thing I've noticed.
Design thing first.
Okay, so the design thing I've noticed, this is actually not really a criticism, I guess. This is more a thing I noticed that I'm like, if you would like to think about how this could have gone very badly, here's my I don't have any proof of this. This is not a research thing. I didn't interview anybody about this at 2K or for Access or anything, but here's my thing. So people complain about the DLC on this, like the DLC that you can buy is basically outfits for the characters, and I should note that the outfits for the characters are all for the Marvel characters. The only character who has outfits that change stats is Hunter, and none of Hunter's outfits are for sale.
Okay.
So it's all good. Cosmetic.
Yep.
Here's the thing. So in the game, you have the arcane chests laying around, and they reset every few days, and that's where you get all cosmetics and there's literally hundreds, maybe thousands of cosmetic items, like in terms of how you can customize Hunter, in terms of all the color schemes for every Marvel character has all these different outfits, and all those outfits have all these different color schemes you can unlock, and then you have to pay them for them with in-game gloss currency, which you get tons of, so it doesn't really matter. Here's the thing. When you open those chests around the Abbey and the surrounding grounds, that's where you pick the rarity. There's like a common one and an epic one and a legendary one and whatever. As you unlock, you find them and reveal them through puzzles and stuff. And you have to open them with what are called arcane keys. And arcane keys are pretty rare. Like,
how do you get them?
You either solve a puzzle or you do it sometimes on training. You can pick every day. You can do a daily training with a different character, and that'll give you some friendship experience with them, and usually give them a buff for when they start the next mission with you. They'll get a bonus, and sometimes the bonus is an arcane key. Here's the thing. Because those chests reset, there's a set number of chests in the world, and they reset randomly, kind of every few days. I believe, with no evidence, but
anecdotally,
I believe, just by experience through how I've seen games, I very much believe that originally those arcane keys were going to be sold for real money.
Oh.
And the way you were going to get new cosmetics and stuff from those chests is to pay for those keys. And that's how you were. I mean, I'm sure you could find some in the world, but there is not a single doubt in my mind. I am 97% sure that the original design for this by 2K standards, because we've seen how they monetize shit, was the arcane keys are going to be for sale for bundles of arcane keys to go open all these chests if you want to get cosmetics. And that's not in the game. That is not in the game. The arcane keys can only be gotten through in-game means. There is no microtransaction stuff beyond buying specific costumes for the characters.
That, again, do not impact how they play.
That do not. It feels like a microtransaction system when you're running around doing it. You're like, I am shocked that I don't have to do something real world to get these keys.
Right.
And like, I very much believe that was originally how it was, and I wonder if Marvel or Disney stepped in and said no.
So you're saying they made a good decision?
I think they did make a good, but there's an element of this that I'm just like, it is so weird the way that's set up, and it's set up in a way that feels. I don't have another word for it besides predatory.
Yeah.
It's like it feels like you could just turn a dial on this and all of a sudden you've got a reason for people to spend money. Right? And they didn't. Yeah. And I wonder if that was Marvel Disney's being like, no, we lived through the Battlefront 2 thing. We're not doing that again.
It's very possible.
So I'm very curious about that, if they'll ever talk about that.
Well, that's actually a good thing, though.
So it's a good thing. But it's just it's just the thing I've noticed.
What about the technical thing you were talking about?
The technical thing is, as I have played this game more and more, longer and longer, and look, been playing this game a long time, and sometimes maybe I have played it so long that I should have turned it off and reset the game.
Right.
Much like Pokemon, where like you played it long enough and like all the textures started to go crazy. After like maybe every day I load this up, I should quit it and not just use.
Only play it for a few hours at a time.
But I have started to run into some pretty nasty bugs, progression bugs in this game, and some things have been like, okay, a little glitch here, that's fine. So I ran into this thing. So there's this thing called Intel Ops, which is a machine, like a big high-tech thing that Carol mans in the same room as the main mission table. And you can pick up these Intel caches in missions, and you decode them there, and it gives you hero ops to go do. And what those are like, like in mobile games and Assassin's Creed and stuff, where you have those missions you can send characters out
I love
on,
that.
And it's like a time mission, and they come back and bring
I love it.
They're like that. Except they're not real world time. They're timed by days in the game. So you don't have to actually wait that long. So that's cool too. And so you can the missions come in two kinds. You can assign a character.
What was that called in Assassin's Creed?
Oh, a bunch of different
There's a name for it.
Time missions usually, or like, I mean, they usually have a different thing every time. The ones I always think of are the like Rogue and Black Flag, where you send the fleets out to do that. That's what I always think of. So you can either pick a character to go do the mission, or some missions require a specific character to go on them. So a couple days ago, I had two missions I was going to do. One of them required Ileana to go on it. So I picked her, and then once she was off on the mission, the only thing left to pick was the other mission, which had to select any character. And I picked it, and instead of letting me pick a character, it just sent nobody on the mission.
No.
The mission activated, and there was no one assigned to it. And I'm like, oh, I wonder what that's going to do. So I went, a day passed in the game, and I went to, I'm like, okay, let's see what happens. So, and here's the thing. So when it tried to load up the mission with nobody assigned to it, every time you complete a mission, either that hero op missions or the main missions, like the actual real, turn-based strategy missions, once you complete it, one of the things the game does in the screen where it gives you the rewards is it procedurally generates a terrible comic book cover. And it's like, it has the characters that you use for the mission and the title of something, and a little blood in the street, it's like, and it will, in the corner with the characters in the Marvel box and a number. It's like a fake comic book, right? They all look terrible. Like the background is just like a big sunburst or a gradient, and like the character models are like too close to really.
So it's all pixelated.
Some are like really blurry, and you're like, oh no, don't do that. That's not. I like what you're after there, but it just doesn't work. So when it tries to generate a comic book cover for nobody, and the game crashes.
Oh, because the guy's not there.
Because there's no one assigned to the mission. So it has this error, like memory overflow error, and it crashes the game. And I'm like, uh-oh. So I load it up, does it again. Load it up, does it again. And then I'm like, it's such a loosey-goosey system. I wonder. So I just start hammering the A button like as fast as I can when it loads up. And after a couple tries, I do manage to get it past that before it can finish generating
things games
and
journalists
then it jumps to the next one, and Magic's comic cover comes up fine. So I dodged past for a second. I was like, did I just break Intel Ops until they can patch it?
Right.
No, but just if anyone from Firaxis is watching, email me. You got a problem. And the other thing that's happened is there's clubs in the game. Like they form clubs. There's a Magic Club, which is called, it's a very complicated acronym that works out to be Emo Kids. And what happens is you agree to join, and then you'll get so many things in this game. So there's a thing called Superlink, which is like basically like a little social media thing that they all have in the Abbey and can all talk to each other.
I have to say, Matt, this is like almost overwhelming.
It's a lot, but it all kind of rolls out real well.
Right,
It rolls out way better than I'm explaining it.
Yeah.
The Superlink thing
You're trying to crunch 25 hours into like
the Superlink thing is like a bunch of they can chat basically, and all of it's very funny. Like this game is very funny. Like they know the characters. The characters are extremely well written. They interact very well. It's a lot of fun.
Voices and likenesses not from like if you expect to see like the voices in the
it's not MCU.
Yeah.
I'll get to the voices in a second.
Okay,
but like and periodically, if you have found the components you need for the club, you'll get a private message that basically says, "Hey, we can do that. Can we do the meeting tonight for the club?" And you say yes. And then when you come back from the mission, one of the characters from that club will be waiting there to take you to the mission. So there's a shop class that is formed with Peter and Robbie and Tony, and most recently, like they wanted to meet, and I hadn't gotten the components yet, so I gave the components to Peter. And then I got the message from Robbie saying, "Okay, can we do shop class?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it tonight." And he didn't show up that night. And he hasn't shown up since. And usually when you come back after a mission, you can like go hang out with somebody, or like you can do there's stuff to do at night. Mm-hmm. There hasn't been anything like that to do at night for a few days. And I'm like, did I break the shop class? Is the shop class not? Because at first I was like, maybe it's not showing up because like another character has to show up. Because they're narrative. Like the shop classes aren't just like random little things.
Yeah.
They are narrative progressions with the different characters building relationships together, just like everything. And I'm like, oh, maybe like I haven't had an emo kids meeting in a long time, and I'm figuring that's because I probably need Scarlet Witch to join before I can do something with that, because I figure she's the next up to try what they're doing in that with the magic thing. But with the shop class thing, I've actually got an invite to do it, and then they never showed up to do the meeting, and I'm kind of wondering if I've like broken it and don't know like what I need to do.
Bug testing this game.
I can't even imagine.
Fathom it.
There's so many different.
Because there's so many permutations and combinations.
Look,
you could do something over here that breaks something over here.
I mean, I know we complain. I've complained certainly in the past about systems on systems on systems. This is systems on systems on systems on systems on systems on systems.
Yeah.
I just really like all the systems, and they're all fairly easy to understand and get how they all match together. And the other thing that's important about it, it is very clear and tangible what the benefits to you are.
That's important.
And you feel them. The instant anything upgrades, you feel it. And there's a little, like, you can give people compliments to get up their friendship.
I would say that's true about Callisto Protocol as well.
That's true. Yeah, the upgrades feel very meaningful.
I didn't have a lot of good things to say about it, but the upgrades in that game, you definitely feel them.
No, I never hesitated on spending Callisto credits on that 3D printer, because you knew it was going to change.
It would make a difference.
For sure. That's a good thing. So yeah, that is my technical problem. Is like I've run into some bugs that have just been like, I don't know if this is wrong or if I've unlocked the thing yet. It's weird.
Swan has a question. Can you change how the subtitles look?
No,
because I agree they're annoying.
They're very weird. They're very small. And you not only can you not change how they look, you can't turn them off. Yeah,
I'm sure you guys saw it in the B-roll before, but yeah, they get like really obnoxious. See, they're just like. They almost look like they're like tooltips popping up on your web browser.
Yeah, that's what XCOMs looked like too. But no, you can't actually turn those off. You can't change the size. You can't change the font. You can't change the color.
It's weird.
It's the options on the presentation stuff is like shockingly limited, and I'm expecting them to patch more of that in because.
Yep.
And look, I normally do turn the subtitles off on everything, but I think these are important because we're going to get into a thing I almost forgot to talk about. The sound on this. The sound is good. The sound mix is questionable, and I'm glad the subtitles are there because they play dialogue lines during very loud sound effects.
I noticed that same problem. Even the amount of time that I played it,
I'd be missing dialogue constantly if those subtitles were on.
I noticed that. It's just in the limited time I played it, I noticed that.
Yeah, so maybe there's a reason you can't turn them off, right? As far as the voice acting goes, here's the thing with the voice. A lot of the characters are patterned after their MC, like especially Tony. Tony is very much MCU Tony. He's sarcastic and doesn't really understand.
He's written that way.
He's very written that way. Yeah. He doesn't sound much. Sometimes he sounds like.
Every once in a while, it sounds like whoever the guy is trying to sound like.
Every once in a while, it sounds like they're channeling Robert Downey Jr., but not so much. Strange is much more like his comic version. He's very loquacious and doesn't shut up, and nobody really likes him very much.
Yeah.
Peter is sort of a mix of everything, and he's still voiced by Yuri Lowenthal, so there's some familiarity there. most of the other voices are good. There's a few that I just don't like. Nico is voiced by her real life, live action actress, and I think it may be one of her early. Maybe she hasn't done a lot of voice acting because some of the delivery is a little weird. And there's like something. There's a couple of things that I just. The voice acting is fine. Like Carol, like Captain. Look, I'm very picky about Captain Marvel. I love Carol Danvers. Like she's one of the earliest as Ms. Marvel. She's one of the first characters I ever read in a comic book in an old 1970s Spider-Man team up. I like Ms. Marvel. I like Carol Danvers. I like Captain Marvel. Bite me. The thing is, the actress who I can't remember who does the voice of her in this, but she is fine. Like her voice acting is great. But I would never cast her voice as Captain Marvel. I would never cast her voice as Carol Danvers. It's a little too. It's a little too girly, I guess would be the way I'd say it. Like I think Captain Marvel should have a little more stern mom to her.
I thought that was the exact vibe I got from her.
Not some of the lines later do not sound like that.
Oh, okay.
And I just
they soften her up.
I wish there was a little bit more grr to her.
Yeah.
And
I felt that way from the little bit I played.
It's just not there in the timbre of her voice to the degree I would like it to be. That would basically be how I describe it.
That's nitpicking, though.
It is nitpicking,
yeah.
But like these characters are done so well otherwise that some of these things are sort of like, all right, I guess so. Like there's some of the performances are amazing. Ileana is fantastic. She's got like the Russian accent thing, and she's just kind of a jerk the whole time. And it's like it's very accurate. And one of my favorite lines in the whole game, because she's the one who has to open the portal to send you to wherever the mission is. And every time you walk near a character, they will say something to you usually. And every once in a while, you walk by Ileana going into the portal to get to the mission, and she just goes, "Is portal."
All right.
There's a lot of personality in this game, and I love it. I really did not expect to like this game as much as I did.
I knew you were going to like it.
I was expecting to like it. I thought it was going to be fine. I was like, okay, XCOM guys doing Marvel. I did not expect it to be so character-driven, so story-driven, so deep dive into the Marvel stuff. So it feels so much like playing Marvel stuff as compared to being with the XCOM flavor to it. This is one of my favorite games of the whole year.
Wow.
Like, this is great.
El
This is
Guapo
really great.
3385 asks, after 25 hours, are you almost done? I'm thinking about game length for this.
Not remotely.
I kind of guess. I mean, XCOM games are long.
I mean, look, I'm grinding a lot of stuff in like because you have 3 or 4 optional missions every time you go to the mission table to get bonus stuff and level stuff up before you don't have to do this. There's no timer on the story missions. You don't have to do that whenever you. So I've been grinding I'm like night like 40 or something, and like I've done like 5 or 6 story missions and probably like 25.
You always do that
because I want to get
you
all
always
the stuff.
play everything but the main quest when you find a game that you really like.
Yep. And every once in a while I'll be like, okay, I don't need anything else. I'll do that. And every once in a while I'll jump ahead in the story mission because I'm like, oh, the title of that totally means this character is going to show up.
Right.
I'd like to have them on so I can start building up my friendship with them.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So yeah, I'm like very far. I mean, I don't know how long it would take a normal person to beat it, but like.
For you're just scratching the surface.
Oh yeah,
at 20
this game will keep me occupied for 100 hours.
Yeah,
I guarantee.
I mean, XCOM's like that.
And there's 5 more difficulty levels above normal.
Oh wow!
And there's DLC coming for all these other characters, including.
My guess is they'll support this game for a long time.
Including Storm, who is like, man, Storm's going to be amazing in this game.
Yeah.
Very excited about that.
Eve Demon says a lot of the social stuff reminds me of Persona. Weirdly.
Yes, very Persona-like. Yeah.
The courting and the friendships,
giving the gifts and all that. Yeah, there's definitely, if you like that aspect of Persona, you should definitely try this.
Yep. El Guapo again says, this game gives me hope that some Marvel licensed stuff outside of Insomniac might be good. Here's hoping that Black Panther will be decent.
Yeah, I mean, it can happen.
Yeah.
It really depends who you give it to. I mean, like, look, Firaxis makes quality stuff. Like, you know, this is like, if you told me Firaxis was making a Marvel game, this is pretty close to like what I'd imagine an ideal situation to be.
Swanland says, it reminds me of Days Gone, where the voice acting is good, but the audio mixing is terrible and you can't hear what they're saying.
Yeah, there is some of that. Also, like, I noticed something last night that, like, because once in a while we'd go do a friendship scene, because if your friendship meter maxes with someone, you'll get a private message from them, and when you answer it, you go have a little scene with them, and it, like, you get your friendship level, you have a little conversation, and it's like friendship level up. Here's what you get for that kind of thing, and then you go back to the normal day. And I noticed, like, I kept noticing that there was weird sound effects on the voices. what I finally realized, I activated a Doctor Strange one. The scene is us meditating on a cliff, but he's echoing when he talks. And what I realized is when you activate the scene, it still applies the sound effects, environmental sound effects, to where the character is in the abbey. Not the scene. So I was in the main room of the common room, and I sounded normal. But
and then the other dude's echoey, and he's in a cave.
He was in the cave downstairs in the forge.
So
he sounded like he was in a cave, and I'm like, because clearly they don't reflag where the characters are just to do that friendship scene. Yeah. But it's just one of those. It's like, that's so weird. But
I'll say this as someone listening to you, like, if that's what you're criticizing,
what I'm noticing now. Yeah.
It's damn good.
Yeah,
that's great.
And there's like little thing, like you can. One of the little touches I love is you can buy street clothes and combat outfits for all the characters, and there's a lot. I'm running around rocking a Cyclops' right shirt right now just to annoy Wolverine, and so you got tons of options. And for the street clothes that everybody wears at home when they're not in the mission, everybody has a wear random outfits option, so you can make it so everybody changes clothes every day.
Oh, and you just set it and forget it.
No, you just buy the clothes you want for these characters,
and they'll start wearing them.
Hit the regular, and you just have them run around and whatever. It's like they have an actual wardrobe that they choose every day. That's really cool.
Sneaky asks, could someone who's never heard of XCOM or played a card game before play this?
Yeah,
it onboards pretty well.
It's pretty easy, pretty simple.
Yeah. I mean, they realize that there's going to be a lot of new people coming to this.
I would say having played a card game before would help you more than having played XCOM.
Okay.
XCOM is not really required viewing for this.
Okay. Cinetyke, I'm not a particular Marvel fan. After 24 hours, I haven't found much character development. This is just fine if you already like the heroes from the other movies, right?
Yeah, they don't really character develop so much. It's more like their relationship with you. Also, that's another thing I should say. And this is not a bad thing, but I'm going to say this as a clarity thing, because people talk about characters being Mary Sue's,
yeah,
and they talk, Rey is a Mary Sue because they're like, well, no, she's not, but for various reasons. But the hunter in this game, the hunter is a Mary Sue.
The character that you play. The
character you play as in this game is a Mary Sue, or a Gary Stew, as they say.
Explain what that means.
And what that means. So a Mary Sue it comes from an old Star Trek fan fiction. A lot of modern fandom,
fan fiction,
especially.
Okay, I think we're flying off the rails.
No, we're
at
not.
This point.
No, we're not, because this is actually an interesting tropey thing.
Okay.
Fan fiction. There's fan fiction references in this game.
That's weird.
One of the things you can give Iron Man as a gift is a collection of the most fawning fan fiction written about Iron Man. They know.
In character, he would love that.
Oh, he would. He probably wrote some of
it. Pen name.
So, Mary Sue is based on an old Star Trek fan. It was by a character who was named Mary Sue, who is this woman wrote the fanfic, because most fan fiction back in the day, and Star Trek conventions, were organized by women in the 70s. Mm-hmm. That comes from women. And it was basically about this character who was her, as a self-insert character who was put onto the Starship Enterprise and was the best person on the Starship Enterprise. Everybody loved her. They were all friends with her. It was all amazing.
Sounds like every fanfic I ever read.
It is, yeah. And so Mary Sue has become sort of a derogatory thing you say about a character, to say that they are just sort of
perfect.
They're a new character that's put in there and is perfect, and everybody loves them. It's something that has been said about various characters that people don't like, usually female.
Yeah.
And usually it's just Rey is a chosen one, but she's not a Mary Sue because she's bad at a bunch of shit and makes a lot of bad choices.
She's not perfect. Yeah.
Hunter is a character. Everybody thinks they're awesome. Everybody wants to be Hunter's friend, except Ileana. Ileana is actually a hard one. Ileana took me a long time to get to be friends with, because she's more dark and I wasn't playing dark. So every time I'd say something positive, she'd be like, "You are stupid." I wasn't into it.
Portal?
Is not Portal. Is not Portal to my heart. And everyone's just super excited to see them every day. And you come out, it's like, hey, I thought Dr. Rain's I thought I felt a strong power coming towards us, and it was. Good morning. It's guys, everybody desperately wants to be around you and hang out with you. That is a Mary Sue. And look, that is an appropriate character type for this type of game.
Yeah.
You don't want to have to you don't want to play this game and have Iron Man hate you and spend 20 minutes.
You don't want to have the person who's playing the character hate the character either.
Because look, you don't know who this hunter person is. The hunter person's whoever you make
You're
them
making
to be.
him, yeah.
But like, I already like Peter Parker and Tony Stark and all these and like Carol Danvers, and like if Carol Danvers doesn't like my character, I'm not going to like my character.
Yeah.
So you have to have that happen. But after a while, you start to realize like, okay, everybody just chill with the wanting to buddy up to the hunter thing. But so it's not a bad thing. But I'm just saying, in terms of that being kind of a common fandom criticism these days, if anyone would like a good example of what that actually is, Hunter is absolutely a Mary Sue. And that's not a criticism saying they did it wrong. That is exactly what this character should be, because that's the fantasy of this game, is getting to hang out with all these Marvel characters. I should also note, you pick your 3 characters every time you go out on a mission. One of them does not have to be Hunter.
Oh, okay.
You can pick any 3. You do not have to send your original character, Do Not Steal, out to every mission.
Okay, that's good. So that's undoubtedly a thumbs up from you for Midnight Suns. Buy it at full price.
Yeah. If you especially if you like Marvel.
Yeah, and look, I've only played an hour of it. I am a fan of XCOM, and even just that limited time that I spent with the game, I wanted to keep playing this game instead of playing Callisto Protocol. So I can't really say it's a thumbs up for me, but I'll say it made a really, really positive first impression. So I would say that's 1.25 thumbs up from GameFace until I get a chance to play it. And I probably will do that here over the next week. And in next week's show, I will share my opinion quickly on what I thought of it. But I've really enjoyed the first hour and whatnot. And I knew right away that this guy was going to love it.
I knew I was in trouble from very early. I'm like, oh no. Especially as soon as I saw there wasn't a time limit on how soon you had to finish the missions on XCOM.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh no, this is the rest of my year. That's it.
Well, there's not much of that left. And there's not much of our show left either, so we need to move on. Next, we're going to talk about a game that we discussed last week. Matt had played it, I had not. And now regretfully I have played it, and that game is Need for Speed Unbound. It is the latest Need for Speed game. It is built by Criterion, which I think a lot of people were clamoring for Criterion to take this franchise back over after it's kind of shuffled developers for a long time. Although they did make Hot Pursuit in 2019, didn't they? I believe so.
They made a remastered.
The reboot of it or whatever.
They remastered Hot Pursuit.
Yeah.
The 2010 one.
No, there was one in 2019, I thought.
No, that was a remaster of the 10-year-old.
Well, what I found
is the first Criterion one.
Well, what I found as I started playing this is that this has a lot of the same stuff that was in that game from 2019.
Yeah, the last new Need for Speed game was Heat.
Yeah, and what that was that 20? Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. 2019.
Yeah, that might have been.
I think that's what I'm thinking.
It's been 3 years since the last one.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. There are elements from that game that made it into this one. I thought this was a brand new thing, but I saw a lot of parallels between the 2019 game and this one.
I didn't play Heat.
Oh, you didn't?
I don't think I did.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that were in the game from 2019 that have also made it into this. So it wasn't as fresh and new and exciting as I thought it was going to be. You've already shared your impressions of it. Have you played it anymore?
Heat or I don't remember playing Heat, which maybe says
I think that's kind of
yeah.
That's Need for Speed in a nutshell for the last 15 or 20 years. Have you played it more since we talked last time?
A little bit, yeah.
Have your opinions changed on it at all?
Not really. I did turn the difficulty down to easy.
I'll tell you what, Matt.
Because you get 10 retries on easy, and that's more my speed at this point.
I hate this game. I literally hate this game. I have not really enjoyed my time with it at all. The only things that I like about it, and to me, the redeeming values of it that I found intriguing, I think the soundtrack in this is fucking amazing.
Oh, the soundtrack, yeah.
I know people asked you last week and you hadn't really paid attention to it, so I made a point to it. This soundtrack is killer. I love it.
Didn't make a huge impression on me.
But you're not a big fan of hip-hop. And I'm not really either. I'm typically an 80s and 90s hip-hop guy. I don't really like a lot of the modern stuff.
As I said, I think I said last week, I'm not a fan of this hip-hop. Yeah. For sure.
I like this hip-hop, though. And typically I don't. I thought they did a great job curating the music for this. And it's not all hip-hop either. There's some house.
No, there's some electronic stuff I like in this.
And there's some EDM
but
in
it's
there.
very hard to, choose that. The soundtrack feels very out of your control.
I would agree with that as well. It kept my subwoofer going the whole time I played this game. All the tracks in this have these crazy low frequency bass, and it just kind of just rumble the whole time I played this game. There was just kind of this low rumble going on in my subwoofer while I played it. I really like that part of it. I really like how it integrates the graffiti and the street art into the game. I agree with you. I don't think there's anything off-putting or awkward about it. I can't believe it works as well as it does, honestly.
It's I would like to see them keep some element of that in this going. I think you could build kind of an identity for the franchise around that.
I agree. And I think they've got that part right.
And it doesn't always have to be like graffiti or street art. It could be neon shit. It could be anything.
Yep.
Like you could, but if you want to make that as the thing that defines like a Need for Speed, I mean, the thing I can look at a racing game and tell, oh, that's Need for Speed.
Yeah.
Like that's I think that's your key.
Yep. I agree with that. Then you have to play the effing game.
Well, yeah, that's a whole different.
And that's the problem.
Yeah.
Is you eventually you have to play this game, and I cannot say really anything positive about playing this game. I agree with you. The cars feel like crap in this. The oversteer in this game is insane. The game, you have to use drifting in this game a lot.
Yeah.
And I cannot get it. I cannot nail it down to where I'm confident going into a corner that I'm going to drift it and not drift into a guardrail or slide off of the road. I have not still managed to master drifting.
I never make it as far as I want to drift. Like I always oversteer into a stop, basically.
Right. Or I slide into the guardrail, or I turn too tight and then go on the inside of the turn. And you have to drift in this to be able to make progress on normal difficulty. I am right with you, Matt. Ego be damned. I'm putting this on easy. I can't take it anymore. So the way this game works is it's like set on a weekly calendar. And the whole objective is you're building up during the week for this big event on Saturday. And that big event on Saturday costs a F-ton of money to enter. And in the early going, when you're first playing this game, like the first weekly event is like $20,000. Like it took me all week almost to get up to $20,000, playing all these little races where you win like $800, $400, $500. Each race you can just choose to just go for the pot, or you can choose to bet against any of the other racers that are in the race. And the game will tell you like, this is where we think you're going to finish based upon your car's performance, so bet accordingly. At first, I was betting and losing every damn time. And so I just stopped betting like the other racers because it's just completely random. This game, you make one mistake, race over. One big mistake, race over. You'll never finish in the top 3 if you make one big mistake. And the problem with that's fine. In other racing games, I've dealt with that, no problem. The thing with this game is there's too many random variables that can just ruin everything. There's traffic. That is a huge variable. You come around a turn, there's an ambulance in your lane. There's nothing you can do. You're going to hit the ambulance. You're going to lose the race. There's so much stuff happening out in the open world in this game that having a game built around one mistake and you fail is the dumbest thing ever.
Yeah, at the very least, the other racers need to mess up more often.
They never mess up at all.
They very rarely happens.
They are perfect. And the cops, the cops are insane. Notice when you're in a race, like in the middle of the race, the cops will just show up. They will watch all the AI racers race right by them, and they'll come out and smack you in the side and knock you off the road.
Because the other AI racers don't have heat ratings.
Yes.
It's weird.
It's garbage. This game is trash. Playing this on normal difficulty, I literally was pulling my hair out. I did not want to play this after the first 3 days. I did not want to play this at all. And then I get Midnight Suns and I crack it open. I'm loving that. I'm like, man, I really want to stop playing Need for Speed Unbound. Where do I even begin?
I did. So
you did stop.
Yeah.
This game is impossible. So if you get to that big event on Saturday, you have to bet all this money. The first one again, $20,000.
That's my issue. Is like they're asking you to bet all this money that you had to earn, and like if you don't pull it off, you don't really get that back. Like
they kick you out to Friday, and then you have like a day to try to earn all that money back again that you just lost in the race before. I got so frustrated, Matt. This is the first game I have played in years where I just hard restarted the console because I lost the Saturday race and didn't want to lose the money. And then what I found out was, okay, I actually didn't lose the money, but I had still used up my chances. So you have 4 restarts. Mm-hmm. And the big races on Saturdays, they're like circuits. There's like 3, or there's a number of races you have to compete and you have to finish in X place across all those races. So you have like 4 restarts across all those races. So what I did, I like hard rebooted my console. I went back. I still had all my money, but I had used 2 of my chances. I only had 2 restarts left. And I was like, welp, I'm screwed. So I just start over on Friday and start earning the money. No, F you. I don't understand it. This is not known as a hardcore driving simulation. This is the reason Need for Speed is popular is because it finds a nice middle ground for casual players who buy maybe one racing game every 3 years. Yeah, it used to be Need for Speed.
It does make me question a little bit. It's like, am I much worse at arcade racing than your average casual gamer?
How all of a sudden am I so crappy at arcade racing? It's the game. It's not us. Like, if you go and look online, there are thousands of people who feel the same exact way as us. Go and look at the Metacritic user reviews for this game. Everyone says the same thing. This game is freaking impossible. This isn't Need for Speed. This isn't what I signed up for. This isn't what the franchise has been all along. Blah, blah, blah. So we're not outliers.
I recognize that street racing is hard, but that doesn't mean I want to experience
I'll tell you this, Matt. Playing this game for 2 days, street racing is the most insane thing in the world. Dude, people who go out and street race are nuts. There's no way to avoid accidents. If you're going 150 miles an hour and there's traffic on the road, you're gonna die. I'll be honest with you, my opinion of street racers after playing this is completely soured. I'm like, you guys are scumbags. Like, really? You're going to drive around on public streets this fast? Like, once you do it in this game, you realize how foolish and selfish that is. You're going to kill somebody. That's what it comes down to. Like, I have not enjoyed hardly any time with this game. The cars, I couldn't figure out, Matt, do they want me to keep upgrading this piece of junk that I got? Or
yes.
Or do they want me to sell it but you can't sell the car?
You can't sell it because then you can't.
They won't let you sell it.
Well, they won't let you sell it, but also you can't buy a new car because you need that money to enter the Saturday event.
Right.
So, you can't just blow...
Because the car has to be at a certain level, or you can't even get into the Saturday event.
Right, and it can't be beyond that level.
Right. And then there's all these other races on the map. You've upgraded your car to A level. There's all these.
You can't do B level.
You can't do the B level events anymore.
Very weird,
dude. This game is trash.
And you can't adjust the car.
No.
Tuning on the fly. You can't just. If you go back to the garage, you end the daytime part.
You can go back. So you go back once, it will take it from day to night.
Yeah.
You go back again, it takes it from night to the next day.
But those B level things go away.
Right.
You can't just stop in, change the tuning of the car, and then go do the event.
You can't detune the car to go play the B level event and then tune it up again.
And sometimes the B level events pay more money.
I know.
It's very weird.
I have no idea what they were thinking with this game. No clue. The buy-in, so the best races have buy-in. There are some races that are free where you don't have to pay anything to enter, but you're going to win $1,000. And even some of the pay races, it's okay, your buy-in is $2,000. If you win it, you can win $10,000, but you're not going to win it. I've never won a race in this. Have you ever finished first?
Yeah. I finished first on normal. I finished first, I think, 3 times. Out of
I think I finished
20
first twice.
And on easy, I finish first every time.
So on normal, which I've been playing if you have a good race, you typically finish in 3rd or 4th place.
Yeah,
which means that you will win instead of the 10,000, you'll win the 4,000. But you take away the 2,000,
entry fee.
You end up winning $2,000. You're like, why? This game is so stupid.
And then if you go down to easy, it's it needs a difficulty betwing easy and normal.
Yes, I haven't played easy, but it sounds like it's a cakewalk.
Easy is very simple, and you get 10 retries instead of 4. But I will say it's more fun because you're not grinding away at this bullshit all the time.
Yeah.
I would be pretty surprised if there wasn't some kind of incoming patch that eased the difficulty in some way on normal. There's a bunch of things in here that are interesting ideas, but you cannot do all of them at once and expect it to still be playable for an average person, I don't think. If you want to do real high stakes for shit, great, do it. But you can't limit retries if you do that.
Yeah, it's insane.
That might be a thing to put on hard mode.
Right. But not on the normal difficulty setting.
But on top of that, it's okay, if you want to do that, and okay, there's only limited retries, but you have to, if you want to put that in a straight racing game, I'm kind of cool with that. If you're going to do that for a dirt or
the concept
NASCAR
is fine.
Or something,
putting some skin in the game is fine.
But once you introduce the wild variables of traffic and cops and all this shit, when one thing could go wrong and completely derail your entire race, You can't
can't do that.
You can't also limit retries and also have the money on the line be unrecoverable. Like, you can't do that.
Let's talk about the cops. You ever get like a 5-star cop in this where you have helicopters following you and everything? Yeah. The cops in this are insane. After you finish almost every race, you're done with the race. I did great. Then there's a cop chase after the race. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes the AI for the cops is all over the place. Sometimes it's evil and you can't shake it. Sometimes you just make a left turn and they just go, duh.
Well, that one I will give them a little credit on that, where the cops, you have to see what's chasing you.
Because there are like supercar
different
cops.
Yeah, so like if you got a supercar on your ass, you got to go off-road. Because they can't handle that.
Well, that's all you can do.
The biggest problem is the helicopters. Losing a helicopter basically requires you to get under an overpass or under like one of those sections that like kind of has, the L train or like and to do that you have to lose all the other cops,
right?
Because you can't just stop under an overpass while other cops are chasing you. Now I've only been caught by the cops once.
Half the cars on the road are cops.
There's a lot of them.
I've never been busted.
The biggest issue with the cops,
it's just annoying. You're always running from them. So once they're alerted, like, you can't get away. The only way to get away is to go off-road in like a car like this and go sit in the woods and watch the map and wait for them. And still, you come down out of the woods and right around the corner comes an effing cop and the race is right back on. I spent half my time in this game trying to get away from the cops because it just never ends. Literally half the traffic on the road are cops. And it's almost impossible. Once they have the red, like, alert thing around them, they see your ass from, like, 200 yards. Like, you can't get away.
I've not had much of a problem with the cops in this, really. But it is more of an annoyance than that's the thing about the cops in this is, like, I find them, like, annoying. But in a lot of the other games with cop chases in Need for Speed, like, that was my favorite part of the game. And it absolutely is not. It's just a nuisance in this. Yeah. It's just like, I don't like dealing with this is not improving my experience. Whereas like I was excited to get in a cop chase in like Hot Pursuit. Because Hot Pursuit gave you a bunch of tools to use to deal with them.
They're also not as frequent. This just happens after every race. The race finishes and literally they're like, oh, you got to lose the cops now. It doesn't even really matter what happened in the race.
Yeah, I haven't really had a problem losing them after races so much as like doing side missions where like there's side missions that like intentionally pop the heat up and like you have to like but you can't deliver things unless you don't have to escape, but you have to not be being seen by cops. And getting that to happen where you're basically like doing donuts
circles around the delivery
location until they finally decide that they can't see you anymore, and then I've gone off.
Then you try to sneak back in,
and then
they still see you
coming straight at you, and then you go back.
This is what I'm talking about. It's insane. There are so many cops in this world. I don't understand why they put so many cops in this.
Swanland, yes, there were Need for Speeds where you played as the cop. You could play as the cop in a few of them. Yep. Most Wanted, most specifically.
Yep.
I own Rivals. I think you could play the cop in Rivals.
Yep. You could. Yep. It also seems like, I don't know if you've noticed or not, but like, so part of this game is like going back to the safe house, going back to the garage to bank the money.
On the cop thing also, I would note, in a lot of the other games where the cops are a factor in the races, in those games the cops also chase the other racers. Yeah. Like, I've won races in Most Wanted and Rivals because the cops got on the lead racer I was losing to and
never happens.
Delayed him. And that I've never seen that happen here. I've seen the AI crash into like civilian cars. I've never seen them have trouble with the cops.
Me either. No, I haven't seen it ever.
And if they did, actually, the only time I've seen them have trouble with the cops is if they accidentally get hit by the cop who's trying to hit me.
Yep.
It's always collateral damage. It's never part of it's never part of actually like a believable situation.
The overall progression in this game is just glacial. And the other part too I was talking about a minute ago is like a big part of the game is you do all these events and you collect cash. Then you have to go back to the garage to deposit the cash. Now, when you do that, as Matt said earlier, that sends the time forward. So sometimes you don't want to do that. Like, if you get sent back to Friday because you failed the Saturday race, you need to spend all day trying to get that money back. And I don't know if this is true, but it seems to me, anecdotally, that the more cash I have, the more aggressive the cops are.
No. They get more aggressive because of your heat level.
So your heat level goes up.
Yeah, the heat level goes up with every event you do.
Right. So regardless, when you have a lot of money, the cops are on high alert. And so there's like this huge risk, and they will not leave you alone.
Well, that's supposed to be the balance of like, do I want to do all these events, especially in the daytime, and then have to go through the nighttime with a higher heat level than I otherwise would.
Yeah.
But as you say, if you have to redo Friday, you don't really have a choice because you have to get to that goal.
You just have
money.
to do it all day grind.
Yeah.
It's like this
Which
game.
means you're going to have to deal with the cops more because you have to get money regardless of how much heat you get.
This game, its root problem is it has too many self-defeating elements, self-defeating cycles in it. Where if you fail, your chances of failing the next time are worse, or higher.
This is the opposite of the system on system thing that Marvel Midnight Suns does, where all of Midnight Suns systems complement each other, and all of the systems in this game stop the other systems from working.
They seem to work against each other.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre. I don't get it. The other thing I hate
my thing I would like to ask EA, I guess, on this would be like, who is this for?
I don't know.
Like, are the people,
it's not for Need for Speed
are the
fans.
people who just like cars and Fast and the Furious and want to get stoned and play a video game? Do you think this is what they're gonna?
They'll hate it unless they put it on easy.
Yeah.
Which
And
I would recommend everybody who plays this game put it on flipping
and
easy.
even then, it's still annoying.
Yeah, because the other contrivances are still there.
Yeah, and even on easy, top star cop chases take forever.
They just take forever. It's not. I've never been busted. I just get sick of having to drive around in a circle because you're trying to get to your garage. You're trying to deliver someone. You're trying to deliver a car.
The longest one I ever had was a full 5-star thing, and I'd gotten rid of all the cop cars, and I just had the helicopter, and I could not get rid of the goddamn helicopter. It would not leave me alone, even under things. It would be it kept seeing me.
Just sat there. Yep. Vincent asked, "Do you have to do the Saturday race each week, or can you skip a week and play like normal?" No. It will not let you go past it.
The Saturday races are the story.
Yeah.
So you have to.
Those are the big
whole
plot
drive
points.
of the game is you have to participate in those Saturday races because that's the storyline.
Yeah, because during the week the story goes away. You're just out in the open world taking on different races, and then Saturday's the day where the plot moves forward. There's a cinematic. There's some discussion inside the car about the overall plot, and then if you fail it, they just kick you back out to Friday. You have to earn all the money again to enter the race if you don't have it, and rinse and repeat. And then once you do that race on Saturday, if you actually finish it, then the next week starts and you go through the whole process all over again. So no, if you can't beat the race on Saturday, and I felt like that at first. I didn't think I was going to be able to get past it. And I'm like, how do I beat this? How do I get past the first week of this game?
Yeah, oddly enough, this game feels like you're under more of a time crunch than Midnight Suns.
Yeah.
Than the XCOM.
Which is ironic because XCOM used to make you feel that way with the timer that it had. You can't do anything except when you're at the garage, which is okay if the garage weren't tied into moving the time forward. Again, as you're talking about.
You haven't changed the lower third.
Oh, I'm sorry. Again, another case where the game is working against itself again. I'm so infuriated. I really had hope for this because I was a big Need for Speed fan at one point in time, but not anymore.
I think everyone has their old Need for Speed game. They don't understand why it's not like that anymore.
Yeah.
Look, there's potential here. There's a good game in there somewhere, buried under all this nonsense.
Yep. Did you play the online mode at all?
No.
So the online mode, which is weird, you would think that there's just one mode and that mode would be online, but there's a separate online mode where you don't pick your car, you don't trick out your car, you choose from a few cars, and then as you enter races, there are very specific cars. So it's basically to make sure that the playing field is level. So when you get in a race with other people online, you both are racing the same car. So I totally get it. The big problem is that it takes forever to get races because you're in the open world and there's 6 or 7 different locations and there's 16 players per server or something like that. To get enough people to start a race when there's only 16 on a server and there's literally 30 or 40 different events to choose from, it took me forever to even get a race. And when I finally did get races, it was always the max number of people I ever raced against was 2. Because it's just the other people on the server are off on some other event or some other race. They want to race off-road or whatever. They don't want to race whatever race you want to race. So even the online mode, I really found very little enjoyment in. It was a lot of time sitting around staring at the player count on your race to see if finally somebody joined so the race could actually start. I hate this game. I can't believe I hate this game as much as I do. I really thought, I'm this is in my wheelhouse. I love Need for Speed. I love hip-hop. I love graffiti. It's me. And here I am, hating it. I don't understand how they dropped the ball so badly with this game. Again, maybe I need to play it on easy, but it sounds like that's not a perfect fix either.
Did you like Heat?
More than this.
Well, yeah, but
not
is
really.
it the same
though.
people? Is it the
Same people, yeah. Not really. Like, I liked it more than this, but not a ton.
I don't think they're ever going to beat Hot Pursuit.
I don't know.
Like, they've come close a couple times. Like, I like, I would like kind of a more involved sort of underground style thing, like what they're attempting here. But, like, there's part of me that's just like, maybe you're just not able to do that anymore for some reason.
It's not that hard.
You shouldn't. We didn't think so.
Just contact the Duck Consulting firm and we'll help you out.
Vincent says this is Criterion, and Heat was the old team.
Oh, I thought Criterion did do Heat, the 2019 game.
No.
Oh, I thought for sure they did. Interesting. Emperor Dread. That's why I say the last good Need for Speed was 20 years ago. They peaked at Underground. I think most people agree with you on that one.
I can go with Peaked and Underground, but it's not the last good one.
Yeah.
The Criterion Hot Pursuit and Most Wanted were good, and Rivals was good.
Yeah.
Granted, that's more because my favorite aspect of that is kind of the open world chase and be chased thing, and not as much the underground idea, but like...
then there was the Black Box era.
Yeah. And
which was all a wash, pretty much.
Mostly, except for the PS2 version of Hot Pursuit 2.
I don't even remember that.
That was Black Box's first Need for Speed. It was weird because...
Before they were given agency to do what they wanted.
Yeah, well, it was weird because Hot Pursuit 2, the PlayStation 2 version was different from all the others. Because it was Black Box. Black Box made the PlayStation 2 version, and I don't remember who made the... I think the old team made the Xbox PC and GameCube, I think, versions. And the Xbox PC version is fine. It's like a standard Need for Speed kind of... But the Black Box PS2 version is a breakneck, like, roller coaster.
Really?
Like, it's amazing.
What happened?
It's a completely different game with the same
weird.
licenses. And it's like, what? And that was how Black Box became... top dog of the Need for Speed franchise.
And then...
Because it was a revelation at the time, and then, it just sort of sprouted.
And then...
a few years later, they gave it to Criterion and said, please, can you please save this now that you've made all these great Burnout games that we're never going to let you make again. Just make Burnout again. I give up.
Janderman 1978 says, speaking of hard racing games, Dirt Rally says, hold my beer. Absolutely.
Oh,
yeah. Those games are no freaking joke, man. Like...
Also, I don't play Need for Speed to like be challenged that hard.
No,
really.
That's not what this franchise is about. It's a fun street racer, and I had no fun playing this game. I just wanted to pull my hair out over and over again. Like,
it would probably be different if it felt better to play. Like,
the other thing too is like, so Saturday,
like if you slap these systems on like Forza Horizon, like I'd at least feel like I had a chance.
Yeah,
more often. It's also because. I don't feel, and this is probably very subjective, but like I don't feel like you can rebuild nitrous easily enough in this game.
No, I agree.
I think I the way you can rebuild like kudos or whatever points you get in Forza, I think why don't I get minor rebuild from like oncoming and from obviously from drafting, so I get the quick boost thing. But why don't I get it for going fast for a long time?
Yeah.
Why don't I get it for all
hitting top speed stuff like that?
Even for damaging stuff. Like, why don't I get it for more stuff? Why don't you let me, have a little more control over that?
Yep.
Like, maybe that comes with like more upgrades on the nitrous stuff. I don't know. I didn't get far enough to do that. But like, it doesn't feel good.
Again, the oversteer in this is horrific. And the other thing too is like, so we mentioned the Saturday moves the plot forward. There is like one event during the week that also is kind of plot adjacent. And those events are always drifting events. It's always like, here's a track, get as many points as you can in 2 laps or 3 laps, and I can never even get the bottom score.
You mentioned last week about like takeovers, like in the intersections. And I'm like, oh no, that wasn't it. And it turned out that there are takeover races and like the takeover events that I had been playing, and I didn't realize it because the takeover events are not taking over an intersection.
Right.
They're just playing like an obstacle course. Right. It's very weird.
And I could never score high enough on those takeovers. Like I did
learn eventually.
Third place was the best I ever scored in any of those.
I can usually double the top score now.
How?
Because you just never let the combo end. Like, you don't go fast, you don't go amazing, you just never, you make sure
but
you hit
I can't
something.
Do that because I can't drift well in the game.
You don't need to drift. You just need to hit like the barrels and the gates and do jumps and you can extend the combo by holding boost so you get a couple seconds of boost. I mean, drifting is
the game
helps.
again. The game doesn't explain this at all.
Like, clearly you're supposed to like do a drift through all those barrels for the combo.
Right.
I just drive through.
Really? And you managed to score top score.
Blow it away.
Game doesn't explain that at all.
It's very obtuse.
Anyway, that's
also,
Need for Speed
that's
Unbound.
not what a takeover is. In
No,
street racing.
it's not.
I want to
It's not.
point that out.
Yeah, you don't go to some abandoned like.
That's why when
factory.
you mentioned that, I didn't realize. I'm like,
What
no,
it was.
I was like, no, it hasn't been anything where you just do like circles in an intersection.
You just drifted an intersection.
And then when I went back and played it that night, I'm like, oh, these are called these.
That's what I was talking about.
For some
yeah,
reason.
the kind of story events, because ASAP Rocky's there, and like if you fail, he makes fun of you and blah blah blah. So.
Yeah, I don't. For some reason, I don't like that either. It's like I've done things where I've come in second, and he's like.
Y'all
that wasn't great. I was not impressed by any of that. And then like you get like 5. You know, if I gotten 100 more points, I would have gotten first place. He's like, you made that your own out there. I'm like, okay, dude, your praise is really, really on the edge of a knife here. I can't take that seriously.
Yep. So anyway, that's Need for Speed Unbound. Obviously, Matt discussed it last week, so I don't want to spend a ton of time on it this week. I just wanted to share my impressions, which I just did, to let you know how I felt about it. And I say stay far, far away from this game. I probably should have tried playing it on easy before I came in to discuss it to see what it was like. But I trust Matt's opinion on racing games, and he says that doesn't fix it really either.
Yeah, I mean, it gets rid of the frustration, but it just makes it kind of boring.
Right, because then it's too easy.
It is way too
no
easy.
happy medium. So that's two. Is that a thumbs down for you for Need for Speed Unbound?
So.
Okay, so that's 2 thumbs down on GameFace.
Wait till it's
Need for
$5
Speed
or
Unbound.
something.
Yeah. Wait until they patch it, is what I would say.
I would be very surprised if a balance patch wasn't incoming.
I mean, look, they've got to be reading the internet just like I did, and it's like unanimous. People are like, what the F is this? This isn't Need for Speed, and that's what I would say overall. It's not Need for Speed. Like, whatever image you have in your mind of that franchise, this is not it. So I would say stay far, far away until there's a major patch, and Criterion actually says, okay, we heard your cries. We were wrong in how we did this, and these are the changes that we've made to make it better. Until that day comes, stay far, far away. All right, our last topic for GameFace 323. We're here to get you hyped for the Game Awards 2022. Woohoo! Is that not a thing, Matt?
No,
I didn't think so. We're going to try anyway to get you guys excited for the Game Awards. The Game Awards happen tomorrow, believe it or not, at 7:30 p.m. Eastern and 4:30 p.m. Pacific. As always, if you don't want to watch the show and you just want to see all the hot media that's released from it, keep your browser pointed to sifted.net. We go in there. Literally, the trailers are up sometimes like 30 seconds after they air in the show. And literally, if you really just want to take the easy way out, just come to sifted.net when the show's over and just click on the trailers channel, and there's everything, boom, right there. You don't have to deal with the rest of the show. Some of you may want to deal with the rest of the show because you enjoy it, and I totally get that. I don't think there are a lot of you, but there's some. Let's see, a couple things here off the top. First of all, Matt, there has not been a ton of pre-show hype. Like, hardly any. They have released one hype trailer for the Game Awards, which you're about to watch right now. They've released one hype trailer for the awards. Usually there's like 4 by now. Mm-hmm. There's one. And the show happens tomorrow. I mean, I don't know what's going on. So the show team came out, and Jeff came out. He did like a chat on Twitter and basically said, like, we've chopped down the show a lot. Don't expect the same number of big-time reveals that we usually have. And then, went on this diatribe about, we'd love to premiere Half-Life 3, but you can't premiere Half-Life 3 if Half-Life 3 isn't in development yet. And basically just seems to be setting the stage for disappointment, which is just very weird. I know Jeff, and I've done so many huge projects with Jeff.
Jeff is always very willing to hype up a nothing burger.
Yes.
So if he's managing expectations, it's concerning.
That is my point. I have watched Jeff polish a turd many, many times and do very well at it. Mm-hmm. But for whatever reason, him and the show team in this case are coming out and they're saying, you might want to temper your enthusiasm a little bit, which I think is very weird. They did announce the celebrities that are going to appear. They haven't announced a lot of like the gaming industry folks, a couple. There's Aurora, Bella Ramsey, Daniel Craig, Fuseli, Ken and Roberta Williams, Jessica Henwick, Joseph Fares, Pedro Pascal, which is obviously going to be there for the Last of Us show, Reggie Fils-Aimé, Valkyrie, and more surprise guests. And then there's a special performance by Hozier featuring Bear McCreary of Blood Upon the Snow from the original soundtrack of God of War Ragnarok. So the big live musical performance will be for God of War Ragnarok this year. There's also...
You'll have to imagine the dragons.
Yeah, you'll have to imagine the dragons this time. And then the orchestra returns. Lorne Balfe.
Really the one thing everyone can agree on about
that
the
was
Game
great.
Awards.
Yeah. It returns. So the Game Awards Orchestra will perform scores from the year's Game of the Year nominees and more. So that's a good thing that's coming back. Everyone, I think, unanimously thought that the orchestra was a great addition. Valve is giving away a Steam Deck every minute of the show. That's amazing. They're going to give away like 300 Steam Decks.
Which should tell you that it is really shorter this year.
Right. So maybe Jeff went to them and they're like, well, you only have to give away 90 of them.
Yeah.
Although, I'll say this, Matt. So I went and looked. Remember last year how IMAX came on board and people could go and watch viewing parties of the Game Awards? We're like, who the hell is going to do that? Well, last year I probably should have went and looked. I did not. This year I did go and look. And I was actually shocked at how many tickets they've already sold for people to go watch this at IMAX. Mm-hmm. Like most theaters that held like 60 or 70 people would have like 25 or 30 ticket sales already. I mean, you may think that's sad. That blows me away. Some of the bigger IMAX theaters would have like 50 or 60 tickets sold already. And that was this morning. So you got to imagine today, tomorrow, the sales will go up. I was pleasantly surprised that they've managed to find an audience for people to go to IMAX theaters and watch this. Like, some of the rural areas seem to be the areas that had, like, the most people.
Well, yeah, because they don't have the internet connection to watch this
I guess, yeah. They can't trust the streams.
I mean, if you want to see this stuff in full res, that's a way to do it.
Yeah, it's a great way to do it. So, great job by Jeff in that case. When I first told me about this, I was like, oh, you're just doing that because your dad owns IMAX. Seriously,
that helps, yeah.
And, I mean, it sure helped to get in there. His dad was like, sure, you're my son. You can do whatever the hell you want in my theaters.
It's a Thursday night. Who cares?
Right. We're not going to lose much money if we give one theater to your thing. But as it turns out, it actually is working. Like, people are showing up at this stuff. I think that's awesome. The people are getting together to watch the Game Awards. And then Genshin Impact is like bribing fans to vote for the game with in-game currency. Did you see that? They're like, if you go vote for Genshin Impact for the Game Awards, we'll give you like in-game money. Which, I mean, it shows you the power of, at least from Genshin Impact's perspective, the power of the Game Awards. They care very much if their game wins the People's Choice Award or whatever.
It's big exposure.
Yeah, I guess it is. Bigger than I thought it was.
Yeah, I mean, the awards don't really matter, but the exposure matters.
Yeah.
That's the thing, because a lot of people do watch it.
Yeah. So again, the show team says shorter and less reveals. Here's some of the quotes that they shared in the chat. The team has, quote, cut back pretty significantly in terms of the runtime of the show. With fewer bigger games, that'll be in there. However, if you go and look at those IMAX schedules, the IMAX schedule says it's 3 hours long still.
I mean, that is pretty substantially shorter.
Is it?
It was 4 hours
Was
last year.
it 4 last year? God dang. I know one thing, man. Like, working on curating this thing, it will never end. You just sit there hour after hour. You're like, oh my God, I don't want to create another game page. And it just keeps going and going. Well, according to IMAX, it's 3 hours. We'll see if they actually hit that or not. And they went on to say viewers can expect lots of gameplay. There are a couple of CG pieces. We've got a lot of small independent studios and bigger studios showing games. The industry is so big now, I don't think it's all dependent on, quote, we've got to have this one game or it's not worth doing, unquote.
What one game is he talking about?
I think he's just a hypothetical one game that's going to bring the house down. And if you don't have that at the end of the show...
I mean, my guess means that there's no Zelda.
Right. Yeah. Although, the fact that they say there's lots of gameplay does lead me to believe it might be there. No.
Nintendo going to do that themselves.
Probably.
They don't need that.
I mean, they have relied on Jeff to debut some pretty big stuff. I mean, he debuted Breath of the Wild, remember?
Yeah.
Numa and Miyamoto sitting in front of the TV. It was the only footage that we had of it for, like,
that
ever.
That was a long time ago.
It was. But they've maintained a pretty good relationship. So I'd say it's probably 50-50 whether Tears of the Kingdom will be there. So NetherRealm came out and said that their new game's not going to be there, which most people think is Mortal Kombat 12.
It's either Mortal Kombat 12 or Injustice 3. Is no
The Injustice thing sounds like it might be dicey right now. Star Wars Jedi Survivor, pretty much confirmed already.
Yeah.
They screwed up this week and shared its release date. I had a feeling that the big reveal at the Game Awards was going to be its release date trailer, and now we know it's coming out on March 16th. Bandai Namco already confirmed that Tekken 8's going to be there.
Tekken 8's going to be at everything for a while, I think.
Square Enix already shared that Final Fantasy 16 is going to be there, and I think we can assume that Dead Island 2 is going to be there because he seems to be the shepherd for that game. My guess is that's the piece of gameplay that we'll get. And then a couple other guesses, like Starfield, I think is going to be there. I think we'll get gameplay of Starfield.
I mean, considering it was supposed to be out a month ago originally,
so I think that's one of the big gameplay chunks we get. And then whatever Kojima's ready to show. You know he's going to be there in some way, shape, or form.
He'll need to pop up on a live stream and say, like, hey, I'm here.
Yeah.
I have nothing to show you, but I'm here. Like,
yep.
There'll probably be something. You'll probably see something. It'll probably be the equivalent of that original teaser of Death Stranding with the whales and everything.
And then this year, Matt, there's a brand new category called Best Adaptation to, quote unquote, reward video game movies and TV shows. Which, translation, to get celebrities to show up at the Game Awards.
And to get a trailer for Last of Us.
Like, I mean, that's all this is, Matt. That's all it is. Is they're like, now we can get all the actors to show up to the Game Awards.
How many years in a row do I need to say that this is a giant commercial? I mean, that's all it is.
It really is. Yeah. And this year, it may be even more so that way. Because it does not look like we're going to get the gigantic reveals that a lot of people count on. So that's a little disappointing. And that's pretty much the whole story.
I mean, there weren't a ton of giant reveals last year either. Just a lot of games.
Yeah.
Most of which no one really
cared about or remembers now. Yeah. And I'm guessing we're going to get a lot of that this time, too. A lot of indie stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Et cetera, et cetera.
Indie stuff, a lot of Korean stuff.
Yep.
A lot of that. I mean, a lot of the Korean stuff they've shown there. It's like, oh, I'm really interested.
Well, it looks better than the Western stuff.
I can't wait to see it again on the next Game Awards.
When it's still just a trailer.
Yeah.
But as of right now, basically 24 hours away from the show, this is it. This is all the hype for the Game Awards that we have right now. That seems really low compared to prior years.
Yeah, I mean, usually there's a little more chatter, I guess.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Managing expectations is a strategy, I guess.
It's probably not the right one.
It's very out of character.
Matt, do you realize last year they claim that 85 million people watched the Game Awards?
No.
There's no way that's true.
85 million machines were tuned because of all the extra drops. I mean, how many of those? I mean, you're going to have so many people.
Bots.
Well, not bots, but you're multi-streaming in the same household to win the shit. I mean, I'm gonna have the Steam thing running on my PC.
I want a Steam Deck.
Yeah. I don't really want a Steam Deck, but I'll take one for free.
I want one, but I don't want to pay the price for one.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll have that running on my PC, but I'm gonna watch it on my TV.
Yeah,
and I'll probably have it on my laptop running on Twitch to get the drops from that too. Like,
yep.
If everyone's contributing to 3 or 4 stream views at the same time, that's not 85 million people. It's still a lot of people, though.
Yeah, my guess is probably it's really. How many people do you think really watch it? My guess is probably 5 million.
Yeah.
So I can say this now because I don't work there anymore and it doesn't exist anymore. But Spike's Video Game Awards, if we got 1 million people, we got a 1.0 Nielsen rating, it was a win.
Oh yeah, same at G4.
If we got 1 million people watching the Spike VGAs, we were like next day. Oh, yeah. We were celebrating.
We got 1.0 on E3 a couple times. And
I was there for one of them, and we were like partying in the streets.
Like the bosses never thought that was even possible.
Right. Yeah.
And there was a little element of you and me being like, "We fucking told you."
Yeah, we tried to tell you.
You could have been getting this years ago if you'd fucking listened to us in 2002. But okay, here we go.
We weren't talent, Matt. We were just the know-nothing.
No, that was the problem.
Worker bees.
We knew everything about the stuff they didn't think was important.
Right. That's a good way to put it. So anyway, I mean, my hype level for the Game Awards, I can't remember it being this low. Since the first one, maybe, because I just didn't know what it was going to be. And then after the first one, I was like, oh, okay. We have a big event now, a new one in the games industry. And for the most part, even last year, I felt like the show's delivered. But this year, it's not shaping up that way right now. I hope I'm wrong. And maybe this is a red herring. Maybe this is Jeff trying to lower expectations and he's about to blow the doors off of shit tomorrow. I don't know.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton.
It would be bold, but yeah.
I mean, look, also, like, you know, a longer game isn't a better game.
Yeah.
Like, you know, maybe focusing and having a more coherent presentation would do it some good.
I think cutting it down significantly would do it a lot of good.
Yeah.
But that's the other thing, too.
Well, they already cut an hour out of it.
Right. But it's like, look, if you're running something for 4 hours, you should expect a gigantic audience because some people are going to show up at the beginning and quit. Some people will show up in the middle and hang out for a while.
Yeah, if you
some
just
people show up at the end.
If that 85 million is just counting the number of logins for even a couple of seconds or 10 seconds or something, like, yeah, that's not a useful figure at all.
And there's no way to check it, so I don't know.
If you're talking about people who have sat there and watched the whole thing or had the whole thing on the whole time, I think your 5 million figure is probably pretty close.
Yeah. Vincent's saying there's 30 million. China has a ton of people. No, they're not watching a U.S. Game Award show. They don't care.
Yeah,
they don't care about these games. China does not care about the same games that we care about because their government keeps those games away from them. They don't even buy PlayStations and Xboxes and Switches there. They all play games on PC. There's no way. Like, you just don't go from a show where 1 million people are interested in watching to a show where 85 million people are interested in watching. It just doesn't happen. And it's like, okay, well, you're only airing on US TV for the Game Awards. You're right. That's true. But that stuff was on VOD after that, and it did not do anywhere near those kinds of numbers. So just based on your interest alone, there is no way there's 80-some million people watching this. There's no way. He can share whatever numbers he wants. I don't begrudge him. But there's no way 85 million people watch that.
I don't believe almost as many people watch the Game Awards as watch the Super Bowl.
The Super Bowl.
I don't buy that.
That's insane. That he got away with saying that is even more insane. And nobody questioned it. Oh, okay. You got Super Bowl numbers. Okay.
And I realize you're dealing with a worldwide audience here and not just American audiences like with the Super Bowl. Yeah. But it's still very hard to believe.
If he has 85 million people watching his show, imagine the ad rate he can charge. Mm-hmm. He could charge $200,000 for 30 seconds.
If you had 85 million people really watching this show, you would not cut it down.
There would be no commercials. There would be no sponsorships. You wouldn't need it.
Yeah.
Your ads.
You just have people clamoring to be on the show.
Yes. He would quit doing the show in 3 years if 85 million people watch his show. Because he would be rich beyond his wildest dreams.
That would make it one of the most watched things in media.
It's bullshit. I hate to say it. Sneaky says everyone lies about numbers. Nobody lies that much.
There are margins.
He's figured out that there's no way people can check.
You can't check,
to see if it's legit or not. And so he can just run with whatever number he wants. And again, if I were doing the show and I knew I could get away with it and it was my own money on the line, I can't say that I wouldn't do the same thing.
Yeah, 85% of statistics are made up. As Time Zinni says,
that is not true.
Research shows that 80% of all research is wrong.
Which means that wherever you got that figure from is wrong.
That's the joke. That's the joke.
Oh, really? Do you think that was a joke?
A little bit.
I don't know about that.
No, that's an old statistics joke.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 85% of all statistics are made up.
Oh, I've never heard that before.
That's an old joke.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. 57 billion numbers can't be wrong, Emperor Dread says. That's funny. Jeff has always been a bullshitter, though. No, he's not. Like
he's always been a marketer.
He's Barnum.
Yeah,
he's Barnum Bailey. He's getting people hyped for his thing, but he doesn't lie.
Well, Barnum was a liar. So
was Barnum a liar?
I mean, that humbug is literally what he trafficked in. The Fiji mermaid was fake. Like that.
Oh, right.
The whole thing. Barnum was a liar. That's what bullshitting comes from.
And to be fair, Jeff is fibbing about the numbers.
Sure.
He may have found that number some weird way to rationalize
another
in his
way.
mind.
Another way to phrase that is he's a showman.
There you go. Okay, we'll find happy medium.
Like the old egress story about Barnum, where he's like, come this way to see the exciting egress, because everyone would stand around and clog up the thing. He couldn't let people come back into the tent. And he's like, so he had signs saying, come see the egress. Egress just means exit.
Yeah.
And so people would leave the tent, and then they'd have to pay to get back in if they want to get back in.
If Jeff could prove that 85 million people watch this, like, the show, it would only have to be 90 minutes long. It wouldn't be filled with junky indie games like it is every year. It wouldn't be filled with junky free-to-play games like it is every year. And he wouldn't,
for 1 second, have to even consider being worried about competing with E3.
Nope.
Tell you that much.
No,
no one would care about E3 because you just want to be on his summer Game Awards.
Nobody
stream.
would have anything for E3. Imagine the brawls that would happen between the publishers trying to get into this show.
If anyone really thought they were putting their game in front of 85 million sets of eyeballs,
they would never save anything for E3.
No.
It would only be about the Game Awards.
Absolutely.
Anyway, if you need any further proof, there it is for you. So,
give me a break.
Yep. So, anyway, one thing I thought might be fun is if we went through just a few of the categories, the most popular categories, looked at the nominees, and we picked who we think will win in the Game Awards. Now, keep in mind, these are not the picks for Matt and I. We're going to do our Game of the Year awards in like a week. This is not the games that Matt and I picked for these categories. This is Matt and I trying to guess what the editorial committee will crown with these awards. So, again, don't read anything into this. Don't be like, oh, Shane said this, so that means his Game of the Year is going to be that. No, we're trying to guess what 30 or 40 video game editors are going to crown as the winners for each of these categories. So let's start with Best Narrative, which is basically Best Story. Plague Tale Requiem, Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, and Immortality. Which do you think the editorial committee will pick?
Elden Ring.
You think so?
Yeah.
just absurd.
Yeah. I mean, it could be God of War.
I think it's God. I'm going to say God of War.
It depends whether they had to pick God of War because Sony's so heavily involved in the show.
Maybe.
That's it. If you believe that they are picking things based on sponsorship, God of War. If you believe they are picking things based on what you think, video game review editing people are going to vote for, Elden Ring.
Do you really think that they think that Elden Ring had the best story?
For some reason, they do. Yeah.
That's so weird.
I'm not saying I agree with it.
Yeah, I definitely do not agree with it.
That is conventional wisdom among the hardcore folks this year, is that Elden Ring was the best story in games.
That's insane.
I mean, look, Immortality's got a real claim to it too.
Legitimately,
sure. Yeah.
I think it'll be God of War Ragnarok.
I think it'll be Elden Ring. I think if Elden Ring is nominated for something, Elden Ring is going to win it.
Although I will say this, some of the comments on YouTube for GameFace, a lot of people really like the story in Plague Tale. They say that later on it gets really good.
Sure.
We didn't make it that far. Which to me shows you that the story
Final Fantasy 13 gets great after 20 hours, but I'll never fucking
I hate that argument. I think that argument's nonsense. So you say Elden Ring best story. I say God of War Ragnarok will win best story. Next, best... So here's where it starts to get fuzzy. Is it best action game or best action adventure? I chose best action game. Bayonetta 3, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, Neon White, Sifu, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge.
Somehow we're nominated for best fighting game too. There's a lot of questions.
I mean, let's be honest, Matt. What is happening?
How do you compare these 5 games?
Matt, what is happening here is Jeff is trying to be judiciously fair with the industry and trying to give every game a spotlight, because we'll get to RPG here in a second. Why is, for instance, the RPG category, Horizon Forbidden West isn't there, but instead it's in action adventure, and all that is they're trying to make sure as many games win as possible. So anyway, let's go back to action game. What do you think will win between Bayonetta 3, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, Neon White, Sifu, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Bayonetta 3. With this voting group, Bayonetta 3.
It's not Call of Duty.
No. It's not.
Neon White is way too niche.
Sifu...
I think it has a
maybe.
chance.
I think Ninja Turtles has a better chance.
Than Sifu?
Nostalgia factor. The people voting for this are of the right age.
I think you're right, though. I think it's
Bayonetta 3. Bayonetta 3 rated too highly among critics.
Yep, I agree with you. I think it's Bayonetta 3. Next up, Best RPG. And again, notice that Horizon Forbidden West is not in this category. Elden Ring, Live Alive, Pokemon Legends Arceus, Triangle Strategy, and Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
Elden Ring.
Again, definitely. Horizon Forbidden West is not in there because I think they want to try to give it Best Action Adventure, so it still wins an award.
I mean, I could slot that in action adventure easily.
I mean, it has crazy RPG elements, though. Really?
I don't think of it as that, really.
I do. It's totally an action RPG.
And then everything's an action RPG at this point. So it doesn't really matter where you put it. The line between action adventure and action RPG is extremely blurry at this point.
Pokemon Legends Arceus.
I mean, it's once again, like, RPG got a weird... I mean, Arceus could be action adventure too.
It's Elden Ring, though. It'll win.
But it's Elden Ring. Down. It doesn't matter what anything's nominated for.
It doesn't matter. Yep. Most anticipated: Final Fantasy 16, Hogwarts Legacy, Resident Evil 4 Remake, Starfield, The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom.
Zelda.
Yep.
Is that panel voted or is that audience voted?
Most anticipated, I believe, is there's both. I think there's an audience most anticipated.
Whoever it is Zelda.
Yep.
I don't see that being anything else.
That's an easy one. And finally, Game of the Year.
Elden Ring.
Yeah.
Not a chance in hell.
It's Elden Ring.
Because the people who are organizing this want to live another day.
Yeah.
That's why. But also, I mean, look, Elden Ring's the top rated, everything is fine.
It's easy to give it to it.
Yeah.
Because it's the highest reviewed game of the year.
Yeah.
And I would argue that a lot of the people who reviewed that game were huge fans already, but
yeah. And
it is what it is.
Again, I don't care how good the other games are. If I'm running the Game Awards, I'm like, I don't want to deal with the backlash of this shit if I don't give it to Elden Ring. So we're giving it to Elden Ring.
And why not? Yeah.
That's even if there was any disagreement on it, which I don't think there was.
Because let's be honest, like, it's a worthy competitor. Like, it's not like if Elden Ring wins, I'm like, you're insane, that's crazy. Like, it's not. It's in the realm of reason that Elden Ring is Game of the Year. So
I can definitely see why you like Elden Ring more than the other games in that list.
Yep. For some people, for sure.
Yeah. It's not like you're trying to nominate some bizarre thing for
But I'll be honest with you, like, I played all the games on this list, and even though I'm not a big From Software or Elden Ring fan, like, it's still a tough decision for me between Elden Ring and a couple of the other games. So I can understand it.
I'm still a little surprised to see Plague Tale on there, but
did you see the creator of Elden Ring said he has no idea why it's so big? It was so fun. He literally is like, I have no idea.
Is that Miyazaki?
Yeah. He's like, I have no clue why it's become such a thing.
I mean, he's got a point. It's just like it's the same fucking thing they've ever done. They did
or
before.
that we've been playing. It's like if Elden Ring wins, like, innovation or something like that, that's where I got to draw the line in the sand. Like, that's where it goes too far.
There's nothing new in their open world, any of that. It's just they did it like a Dark Souls game.
Right.
Like, that's it.
Yeah.
It's like,
that's the innovative part of it. It's really hard. It's hard as balls. So there you go. Those are kind of the big categories for the Game Awards and our picks for which ones you think will win. I'm curious if there's anyone in chat who disagrees with any of our picks. Pokemon Legends runs like arse. Well, actually,
Sneaky, our Souls fan says psychotic. Yes. FromSoft fans are like, it's a cult basically. Like, it's astounding. I mean, I am a FromSoft fan, and people will not hear a negative word about these things. It's crazy. There are also entirely fine FromSoft fans. I am one of them.
Congrim says if Elden Ring wins Best Narrative, I'll just tune out after that.
Well, hopefully you notice when it happens, because it might just be given as a numbered list without any kind of mention before jumping to the next world premiere. Like, it isn't. I assume for the first time, I think, in the history of the Game Awards, the Best RPG Award will finally be given on stage.
Only because it's Elden Ring.
Because it's Elden Ring. Because before, it's just been like part of a numbered list that Jeff reads off, and then they just move on to the next trailer.
Yep. Time Zini says the real question: why is COD not in Best Story? Because it doesn't deserve to be in Best Story. I think he's being sarcastic there.
Somewhat,
as well.
but also, like, man, there is a world where they do that, because then they say that Best Narrative isn't necessarily Best Story; it's Best Narrative Presentation.
Yeah.
And Call of Duty definitely has top quality presentation.
Yeah.
It's just not a very good story, because how good can you tell? That
Sneaky
story's
says
been told.
if Elden Ring wins, it shows what a load of wank the awards are. Best Story. Mr. Starwalker, the story in Plague Tale is good, and he says he hasn't finished Ragnarok yet. Too quick Capri, Final Fantasy 13 sucks after all the hours.
I mean, yeah.
If Elden Ring wins, it's usual and insane levels of cryptic stuff. I'm baffled, from Cinetike. El Guapo, Elden Ring for Game of the Year, Ragnarok for directing. That's the other thing that they do. Best game direction versus Game of the Year.
Right.
That's their way of giving away 2 Game of the Year awards every year without having to piss somebody off.
Yeah, which runs into the same sort of thing that the Oscars run into sometimes, when the Best Director and Best Picture are 2 different movies, where it's like, how is the Best Picture of the Year not also the Best Directed Picture of the Year, right? Yeah. But the real answer is because that way you get, sometimes people have different opinions on direction quality versus the full game or film quality, but like also different people get those Oscars.
Yep.
So you get to give some stuff to the producers of one movie, and you get to give something to the director of the other movie.
Minority Games, Xenoblade 3 will win Game of the Year. Okay. Norco for Best Story. Too bad it's not nominated.
That would be a valid pick.
That would be a good pick, too. Next level. What do you guys think about the Steam Deck? Would you buy one, and why or why not? I have not touched the Steam Deck.
Overpriced nonsense. Like I wouldn't argue with one for free or but for the amount of money it costs to get a decently equipped one, not a chance in hell.
Yep.
Forget it. I already don't use the Switch as a portable. I'm not going to use a portable piece. Like why would I don't know why I'd want to do that.
Yep.
I don't understand. I don't have a use case for that piece of hardware.
Anyway, so if
I won one in this giveaway thing, I would actually very seriously consider giving it to someone else. Like I don't want one.
Give it to me.
Maybe.
I'll take it.
If this thing's 3 hours, they're giving away something like 180 of the damn thing. So
man, yeah, we'll see how it goes. So anyway, that's the Game Awards again, live tomorrow.
180 Steam Decks for 85 million people. How will you ever? There's a lot of places it's not eligible though. Like every thread and every tweet thread about the Steam Deck giveaway, it's just people complaining it's not available
in their country or whatever. Yeah. So anyway, there you go. That's the Game Awards, again, happening tomorrow, or if you're watching the archive of this today, at 7:30 Pacific, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific. And we'll have to wait and see. Again, if you don't have time to watch the show, go to sifted.net. We will have everything curated, like, immediately after it happens live in the show. If you miss the show, go to our trailers channel at Sifted, and everything will just be there. And you can avoid all the other parts of the Game Awards that you may or may not be interested in. So I wish Jeff well. I always wish Jeff well. I hope the show does well. I hope the show shows well because I think it's good for the industry. And so I'll keep my fingers crossed that he is just giving us a red herring and trying to dampen the hype a little bit so that he can just blow it up.
I don't
tomorrow.
think that's what's
I'm just trying to stay positive, Maddie.
No, like let's be realistic for once.
Okay, it's time for Name That Game. We may not have time to do Q&A today. I really thought this show was going to be short because we didn't have that many topics, but here we are.
Yuji Naka got arrested again?
For what?
More insider trading for another game?
Oh.
El Guapo says. For the Final Fantasy First Soldier game.
Oh,
man.
Anyway, we may not have time to do
More like
Q&A.
Billy Hatcher and the Giant Nest Egg.
All right, it is time for what some of you guys say is your favorite part of GameFace. It is... Okay, welcome to Name That Game, and it's very simple. I show you 5 screenshots, and you just have to guess the game that the screenshots come from. You have to guess it before Matt. If you win a free video game. If you've won already this year, do not play, do not guess. Just sit back and watch everyone else play and enjoy it. You cannot win. Although when the year turns over, you will be eligible again. Just a couple more weeks left before you can get back into the fray. The way it works is the chat is on slow mode, so you can only guess one time for every 60 seconds. So don't just start spamming the chat with game titles thinking you're going to win. You can only guess once, and you got to wait 60 seconds to guess again. So make your guesses count. You guys win all ties. So if Matt guesses the name of the game, I look over in chat, and it pops up like a beat or two later. You guys get the win. Another thing is if it's a franchise that has multiple entries, you have to guess what entry it is. You can't just guess the franchise. If it's Uncharted, you need to guess Uncharted 2, 3, or 4, etc. And I think that's it. I don't think there's any loopholes left. We've been running into problems lately, Matt, where I haven't said all the loopholes before the game, and then people have been like breaking the rules. So I think I got it all this time. I see Vincent has put the chat into slow mode, and we're ready to go. Matt, are you ready?
You're way scrolled up.
What'd you say?
You're scrolled way up.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. It looked like people started asking questions for Q&A, probably forgetting that we're doing Name That Game. Okay, now we're ready. We got you guys queued up, and we're ready to rock. Here is the first image. And I'm giving away way more with that first image than I usually do. I'm just going to say that right now. Keith Courage Adventure in Alpha Zone, no.
Yeah.
Metro Last Light, no. Star Ocean the Divine Force, no. Merry Christmas, no. Infamous, no. 50 Cent, nope. Someday. That
was a game on the Guess the Game, like Wordle style thing.
Oh, really?
Last week.
Oh, really?
And I got it in 2. I was surprised.
XCOM, no. Remnant from the Ashes, no.
A little bit like Mass Effect.
Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, no. Mass Effect, no. Monopoly, no. Mass Effect Andromeda, no. Dead Space, winner. Wow. I can't even pronounce your name, man. Foe. But it is Dead Space. Yes, Slagathor, you were too late. Foe got it first. Congratulations, Foe. That's amazing on the first screenshot. I did say, though, that I was being a little generous with the first shot this time. But I really didn't think you guys would get it. But you did. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty amazing that he got Dead Space from that screenshot. That's actually incredible. And here's the second one. Here's the second screenshot. That would have been the second one. If we had made it past the first one, that's the worst I've done in a long time. That's the first time someone got it on the first image in months. Here's the third screenshot. That one I thought might have given it away.
Yeah.
Here's the fourth. That's using the gun that we missed in the Callisto Protocol, chopping one of the Necromorph's heads off. And then here's the final one. If you look in the bottom right there, you can see his little helmet. And that would have definitely given it away. So there you go. That's great. I don't know how to pronounce your name, but you were awesome, Foe. And here's your second round of applause for winning Name That Game. So you win a free game. You can send us a DM here on Twitch. You can send me a DM on Twitter at Dinfire. You can send the site a DM on Twitter at Sifted Games, or you can go to sifted.net and send me a DM at Shane. Any one of those ways. And in fact, the winner last week never sent us a message and has not got their free game. So the winner from last week, don't forget to send us a message and we'll get your free game out to you as well. But congratulations. That's awesome. To get it on the first one, that's pretty rare. So excellent work. Let's see what we got for time here. Oh, we're already over time. So unfortunately, guys, we're not going to be able to do Q&A today. I'm not sure I understand, my watch just said. Like, you're not doing Q&A? What's wrong with you? So we can't do Q&A. We're already over time, unfortunately. And I did a horrible job managing the time in this episode. I don't know how it got away from me so much, but it did. So anyway, that's Name That Game. We'll be back next Tuesday instead of Wednesday. We'll be back on our normal time next week at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern at twitch.tv/SiftedGames. As I said at the beginning of the show, we are supported 100% by Patreon. We're basically just all donations is what keeps us afloat. So if you want to help us out, head to patreon.com/sifted. You can pledge $1 a month, $100 a month, whatever you want. And again, that's SIFTD without the E. We appreciate every single dollar, everyone who can help us. People who are broke, can't afford to help us financially, and you are an Amazon Prime member, you can help us out with Twitch Prime. Give us a free $2.50 every month. If you're watching on YouTube, the instructions to do that are down below. And we also include instructions to do that in everything that we post on our Patreon if you need help with that. So I think that's it, Matt. Game Awards tomorrow. We'll definitely go over that in next week's show. And then we'll do our own Game of the Year awards. Mm-hmm. And that will probably be the last episode of GameFace for 2022. I'm still trying to find my flights home because they're expensive again. Shocker. They've been expensive the last 2 years in a row. I would think with the gas prices going down, they might be a little cheaper this year, but that has not been the case, unfortunately. So I'm still looking for my flights home, but chances are next week's show will probably be the last one. Also, there's really no games left for the rest of the year.
Yeah, not really.
I did Dossier for December, and there were these 3 games that we just talked about opening up the month, and then it's just kind of a wasteland for the rest of the month. So not a lot of big games to discuss. So chances are this will probably be the last episode of GameFace. Next week's will be the last episode of GameFace for the year. And when we get there, I'll explain to you what's going to be happening while I'm gone for the holidays. Well, there will be content going through our Patreon and through sifted.net while I am gone, as usual. I think that's it, Matt. That was a fun episode. I wish you got to play the great game in this episode. I had to play the bad ones. Hopefully that changes. I know next year, I can't wait till the early part of next year when we just have banging games for pretty much every episode of the show. It's going to be
the only
glorious.
Notable thing for the rest of the year is Crisis Core, if you want to call that notable.
Yeah, you're right. That's the last one. And what's the release date for that?
13th, I think.
The 13th. That's day of the show, actually. Okay, we'll see.
That'll be the night before.
We'll see you next Tuesday, and we'll have all the finalities of the holiday season for you guys then. Until then, have yourselves a great week. GameFace is up, and